Chapter 461. Qin Feng had been paying attention to the brother-in-law's every move. How could the brother-in-law's thoughts escape his eyes? "How can I let you do as you wish?" Qin Feng activated the light on the restriction-breaking pearl and silently moved 100 steps away from the brother-in-law. He tried his best to maintain a distance of 200 steps away from the brother-in-law. This distance was safe enough to ensure that the brother-in-law wouldn't instantly kill him. Qin Feng was very clear about how terrifying a martial Dao overlord was. The difference between a martial Dao overlord and a martial Dao overlord wasn't something that could be easily equalized with some divine techniques or treasures. To put it bluntly, if Qin Feng were to meet the brother-in-law head-on, he would probably be instantly killed by a martial arts giant like the brother-in-law in a single move. If I cultivate the 5 Sacred Mountains secret technique and break through to the Sea of Reincarnation realm, I might be able to compete with a martial Dao overlord. As he thought to himself, Qin Feng scanned the area with his spiritual will and found a Heaven Star Border Stage 25 lightning purgatory restriction a few dozen feet above his head. This was an extremely terrifying lightning-attributed restriction. It was much more powerful than the chaotic space-piercing divine lightning from before. The violent power of lightning pierced through the void, shattering one restriction after another in front of it. It turned the void into a sea of lightning and descended with a loud rumble. At this moment, the brother-in-law's face turned gloomy when he saw this scene. He swung his sword and a cold light filled the sky. With a surge of sword light, the 5 lightning purgatory restriction that could easily injure a martial Dao overlord was shattered. Humph! Qin Feng wasn't anxious when he saw this scene. There were countless restrictions in this shrine, and the number of restrictions that exceeded the Heaven Star Border Stage 20 was beyond imagination. The brother-in-law could break 1 or 2 restrictions, but as long as he couldn't walk out of the shrine, he would be tortured to death sooner or later. With a thought, a black tornado swept over from the horizon. The brother-in-law's face changed and he snorted. Another burst of sword light broke the restriction. After half an hour, rumble! Countless purple and green lightning bolts shot out. The snow-white sword light tore through the void, and a miserable figure flew out from the lightning. His clothes were disheveled, and the crystal shield in his hand suddenly left, turning into ice crystals and shattering on the ground, making tinkling sounds. Looking at the broken ice crystal shield, Lian Lu's face was gloomy. His heart twitched violently. He felt even more sullen and angry. He didn't know how many tyrannical restrictions he had broken. However, he knew that if this continued, sooner or later he would be tortured to death by Qin Feng. Damnable bastard! You only know how to play tricks like this. If we were to face each other head-on, I would only need a single sword strike to make this little bastard beg for death. Lian Lu had never thought that he would encounter such a situation, being forced into such a situation by a Xingqian school disciple who wasn't even at the Sea of Reincarnation realm. Countless treasures in his hands were reduced to dust. What puzzled Lian Fu the most was how the other party was able to control so many restrictions. He asked himself, even if his formation Grandmaster level teacher came, he was afraid that he would not be able to do this. No, I can't continue like this. Although I have many elixirs to replenish my energy, I can't absorb any yuan qi here. If this continues, I will definitely die in the hands of this little bastard. I have to find a way to kill him in one strike. Although martial arts experts were tyrannical, Lian Lu had just become a martial arts overlord not long ago. His new secret realm was crying piteously for food, and he could only use 50% of his strength at most. In the distance, Qin Feng maintained a distance of 200 steps away, neither too fast nor too slow. He wanted to torture this young martial arts overlord to death bit by bit. After making up his mind, Lian Lu did not hesitate and took out an ancient stone talisman. Within the stone talisman, a trace of void energy flowed. Qin Feng's divine consciousness sensed that the activation of 10,000 treasures formation art was at his fingertip. It was as if his entire body was the hub of many restrictions in the temple. At this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed. 200 steps away, Lian Lu's figure disappeared without a sound. It's spatial traversal. He has spatial treasures like the ancient void talisman and the world-breaching talisman on him. Qin Feng swept his gaze as a strange look flashed in his eyes. In the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm, the Chaos Tree's descendant with the void elemental god-level spirit root, the Chaos Tree sapling, emitted a formless rhythm. Qin Feng's soul fused with the rhythm and instantly made a discovery. In the void, an invisible figure was following a path in the void. Its destination was a meter above Qin Feng's head. You've delivered yourself to my doorstep. If you had relied on your cultivation base to defend yourself, you might have had a chance to escape. However, you chose to take the risk and used this spatial treasure to pierce through the void to assassinate me. You want to kill me in one strike? You're courting death. Ever since he obtained the Void Elemental God-level Chaos Tree sapling, most Void Elemental divine powers had lost their effects in front of Qin Feng. The Void Elemental Chaos Tree was personally nurtured by Qin Feng. It contained Qin Feng's intrinsic brand. Although Qin Feng was still unable to fully unleash the true wonders of the Void Elemental God-level spirit root, it was easy for him to use it to observe the surrounding void. Lian Lu needed to use a void treasure to penetrate the void to assassinate. It was a huge mistake. His divine consciousness locked onto the void a meter above his head. The corners of his mouth flashed a ferocious look. Qin Feng injected all his cultivation into the Dark North Divine Water Sword as the Chaos Tide fused 10 times in his body. The figure was extremely fast and in 2 seconds, it arrived at the exit of the void. The next moment it tore through space and charged out. Chaos Tide Extermination 10th Sword. A light sword strike with a high degree of concentration. In an instant, Qin Feng seemed to have transformed into that golden divine general he saw in the Faping Palace. He activated the sword imprint in his mind and slashed out, shattering the mountains, shattering the seas, and shattering the stars. The tides gushed forth, the 10 tides all fused together as all the energy gathered at a single point. Bang! The void shattered like a mirror and a black hole appeared. The sword intent that tore through the void continued to blast into the black hole. With a loud bang, the black hole exploded. Lian Lu happened to walk out from this side. As soon as he appeared, he bumped into the black hole. He was like a mouse that had been stuffed with a bomb. He was so shocked that his face turned pale. How did he know that the exit of my void boundary-breaking talisman is here? His mind was numb. Through the black hole, he could still see Qin Feng's strange smile dozens of feet away from the black hole. Then, an irresistible explosive force from the black hole blasted his body. The layer of invisible space power that wrapped around his body shattered. With a crack appeared on the void boundary-breaking talisman in his hand. The next moment it exploded. Lian Lu's face turned pale. He hurriedly took out several precious defensive treasures in an attempt to block the force of the void explosion. He hoped to drill out of the void from other places. However, the void storm was simply too terrifying. Everywhere it passed, not a single supreme treasure could withstand it for more than a breath. I can't accept this. There was a flash of resentment and unwillingness in his eyes. The next moment, he was engulfed by an irresistible spatial storm. The endless void was extremely violent. There was no concept of time. It contained unpredictable danger. Even a demon god would have a slim chance of survival after being swept into the void storm. Lian Lu was also unlucky. Qin Feng happened to have the Chaos Tree sapling, a divine void spiritual root. When he used the void boundary-breaking talisman, Qin Feng took advantage of the flaw. He shattered the void with one blow and was swept into the endless void. Looking at this scene, Qin Feng believed that no matter how many life-saving treasures Lian Lu had, he would lose his life in the spatial storm. Chapter 462. His brother-in-law had been taken care of. To Qin Feng, the restrictions at the front of the shrine were not difficult at all. However, the deeper he went, the more shocked Qin Feng became. The closer he got, the stronger the restrictions were. There was no lack of Heaven Dipper level 24 and above restrictions. Even a martial expert would have to be extremely careful when dealing with Heaven Dipper level 24 and above restrictions. Otherwise, there would be unpredictable dangers. After about 1,000 steps, Qin Feng raised his head and saw a cloud staircase. This cloud staircase was abnormally lofty in the shrine. It was winding and spiraling, as though it was going straight to the dome. Sunlight shone down from the dome of the divine hall like white clouds. This cloud staircase was undoubtedly the core of the shrine. Qin Feng stopped and hesitated. Qin Feng felt an extremely terrifying aura on this cloud staircase. There were even restrictions above Heaven Dipper level 24 and above. In the memories of the 5 mountain gods' last remnant will, he had encountered something extremely terrifying on the cloud stairs and suffered irreparable injuries. Let's give it a try. The cowardly will starve to death and the bold will die. Gritting his teeth, Qin Feng stepped onto the cloud staircase. As soon as he stepped onto the cloud staircase, he felt an unparalleled force descending from the sky. Qin Feng felt as though he was carrying a mountain on his back. His legs went soft and he almost fell. Gravity restriction. Qin Feng held the restriction-breaking bead. A gentle glow flowed out from the bead and the weight on his body disappeared. Heaving a sigh of relief, Qin Feng walked up the cloud staircase. Qin Feng's speed was neither fast nor slow. Along the way, Qin Feng's expression became more and more cautious. Rumble! He was already in midair. Looking at the trace of formless lightning flowing on the cloud staircase, Qin Feng's back was drenched in cold sweat. In this trace of lightning, Qin Feng saw a terrifying scene. The city, mountains, rivers, void, and secret realms were all completely destroyed. This was the invisible divine thunder of destruction, which contained a trace of the true intent of destruction. If a second tribulation mighty figure of the martial Tao came into contact with it, their martial Tao true body would collapse. This time, Qin Feng used a wisp of the Chaos Heaven's Mystic Realm's powers. With the Mystic Realm's powers injected into it, the restriction-breaking bead emitted an even more intense luster than before. Wherever the light flashed, the invisible spider web formed by the destructive thunderbolts cracked. Qin Feng turned into a gust of wind and passed through the crack. 2 hours later, after experiencing countless terrifying forbidden techniques, Qin Feng finally reached the end of the cloud stairs. On a floating island surrounded by white clouds. It was pure white. White clouds surrounded him. Looking at the floating island that seemed to be the end, Qin Feng's expression relaxed. At this moment, Qin Feng's entire body was drenched in sweat. Looking at the cloud stairs behind him, Qin Feng's eyes were filled with fear. If it weren't for his almost god-tier attainments in formations, he probably would have died without a burial ground halfway. On the cloud stairs, the closer one was to the end, the stronger the forbidden techniques were. There were even quite a number of Heavenly Dipper 30 levels and above. These forbidden techniques were set up in an extremely wonderful manner. If not for the fact that Qin Feng had experienced many mystic realms and had reached the pinnacle of the study of array formations and restrictions, he probably wouldn't have been able to walk out. Even an ordinary 9th-grade taboo god would have perished here. After calming himself down, Qin Feng took a deep breath. In front of him was an island floating in a sea of clouds. He scanned it with his spiritual perception and muttered to himself, "There's remnant divine power aura. There should be a stronger protective restriction around this island. For some reason, this protective restriction has been damaged. Could it have been caused by the 5 mountain gods' attack?" After a slight hesitation, Qin Feng stepped onto the floating island. The island wasn't big, only about a dozen miles in radius. Everything that entered his eyes was yellow and withered. There used to be many spiritual herbs and traces of spiritual roots here. There was no lack of earth-grade and heaven-grade spiritual root. Qin Feng even saw an earth-type divine spiritual root, the divine earth tree, in the middle. However, all of its medicinal properties had been sucked away, and all of its vitality seemed to have been sucked away. Qin Feng sighed inwardly. Even if these spiritual roots only had a trace of vitality left, Qin Feng was confident that he could revive them. What made Qin Feng feel the most was the earth-type divine spiritual root, the divine earth tree, in the middle. This divine tree was dozens of feet tall, with a canopy that reached the sky and countless branches. It could be seen that it used to be full of vitality. This was a true spiritual root of the divine system. Qin Feng had several divine spiritual roots in his body. The metal-type divine spiritual root, the great desolate iron tree, the dragon-type divine spiritual root, the ancient dragon blood tree, and the void-type divine spiritual root, the chaos tree. However, these three spiritual roots could only be considered descendants of divine spiritual root. At best, they could only be considered heaven-grade spiritual root. It was extremely difficult for them to advance to the divine level. The chaos tree was evolving towards the chaos tree ancestral root, but unfortunately, it was still far from it. At best, it could only be considered a mid-grade heaven-grade void elemental spiritual root. If not for Qin Feng finding other chaos tree fragments, it might have been possible for the chaos tree to complete its evolution. I don't know which bastard it was. He actually wasted a divine spiritual root just like that. Seeing the completely withered divine earth tree, Qin Feng's eyes turned red. Qin Feng bit his lips. If the Chaos Heavens mystic realm could obtain a complete divine earth tree, its defensive strength would increase by 10 times or even 100 times. With this divine tree, even ancient supremes could forget about invading the Chaos Heavens mystic realm. He took a few steps forward and pressed his cheek against the ancient tree's trunk. He sensed that it was completely devoid of any signs of life. Qin Feng was just about to leave when the chaos tree in his body emitted a strange feeling. A wisp of formless fluctuation traveled through his spirit platform, passed through his dantian, and blasted into the withered divine earth tree's trunk through his arm. Silently, from the moment his palm made contact with the divine earth tree, the divine earth tree silently decayed, turning to ash inch by inch. From the trunk to the crown of the tree, even the trunk of the tree silently turned into ashes. Qin Feng was stunned. Suddenly, his eyes focused. He saw a brown bead the size of a soybean fly out from the center of the divine earth tree's ashes. The brown bead seemed to resonate with the chaos tree as it naturally landed in front of Qin Feng. Reaching out his hand to grab the brown bead, a formless vitality appeared in Qin Feng's powerful spiritual perception. Qin Feng was taken aback. This is a seed? The seed of the divine earth tree? An indescribable burning sensation surged from the bottom of his heart. Qin Feng widened his eyes as he sensed it carefully. Wasn't that right? That weak yet tenacious life force clearly indicated that this was a seed. The seed of the divine earth tree. This was a pleasant surprise. This must be a seed formed from the condensation of the divine earth tree's final essence. The divine tree has a spirit. It probably encountered a calamity that it could not withstand, so it instinctively condensed the last of its strength into a seed. Suppressing the joy in his heart, Qin Feng carefully stored the seed in the Chaos Heavens mystic realm. With this seed, it was not impossible for the divine earth tree to sprout again in the future. Qin Feng was a lot more careful after obtaining the seed of the divine earth tree. He continued walking forward and used his spiritual perception to carefully search. However, other than the divine earth tree, the other spirit roots did not have such capabilities. All their vitality was forcefully sucked away. About 8 minutes later, a figure silently appeared in the middle of the island. He swept his gaze and immediately, his expression changed. His gaze landed on a gigantic yellow lotus flower in the middle of the island. To be precise, the lotus flower enveloped a gigantic egg. With just a sweep of his gaze, he felt an extremely terrifying sense of danger surge from the depths of his soul. Ancient mountain god? Qin Feng's expression changed drastically. Chapter 463. As the yin and yang revolved, the true power in his body rushed out like a flood and blocked in front of him. Qin Feng was extremely wary of demon god-level existences. After digging through countless demon god lairs, Qin Feng knew that even if such existences were dead, they could still easily kill Ji Zun. Something's not right. However, Qin Feng quickly realized that something was wrong. In his spiritual perception, although the aura of the ancient mountain god in the giant egg was extremely terrifying, it looked like a sleeping tiger. Qin Feng pondered for a moment. With light footsteps, he appeared a few dozen meters away from the giant egg. Sweeping his gaze, Qin Feng squinted his eyes. A few dozen meters wide, it was a huge pool. The pool was emitting a layer of faint green spiritual light. Qin Feng's sharp eyes could tell that this was an extremely precious treasure, the heaven and earth spiritual milk. Ordinary heaven and earth spiritual milk was pure white. However, the heaven and earth spiritual milk in the pool was emitting a green spiritual light. It was sparkling and translucent like jade. The aura of life condensed and emitted a jade-like glow. Qin Feng glanced around. There was an array around the pool. This array had plundered the life force of all the spiritual herbs and spiritual roots on the island and gathered them in the pool. In the middle of the pool there was a huge yellow lotus. It was an earth spiritual root, the great earth goldenrod. Qin Feng spent a lot of effort to cultivate this great earth goldenrod. This goldenrod was a few hundred times bigger than the one that Qin Feng cultivated. Qin Feng counted the petals of the great earth goldenrod. There were a total of 33 petals. This was a great earth goldenrod that was over 100,000 years old. Qin Feng's eyes turned red. One could imagine the medicinal properties of a spirit root that was over 100,000 years old. This was practically a stalk of divine medicine. This kind of ancient medicine almost had the ability to make people immortal. What a pity, what a pity! Qin Feng's teeth were itching. At this moment, the refined life force had already withered. It was as if the giant egg that was wrapped in the lotus had plundered all of its life force. This earthy yellow egg was covered in dust and looked unremarkable, just like a stone egg. Qin Feng sized it up. It was about 10 feet tall and had no orifices. Its entire body seemed to be covered in strange runes. Qin Feng stared at these strange runes and examined them carefully. However, what surprised Qin Feng was that even with his vast knowledge, he couldn't see anything special about them. However, this huge egg gave him a very dangerous feeling. Qin Feng believed in his intuition, which helped him avoid many unnecessary dangers. The place where the giant egg stood seemed to be the center of the floating island. The vitality of all the spirit roots on the island had been plundered and turned into nourishment for the giant egg. That was not all. Qin Feng's powerful divine will could sense that the yellow egg was constantly devouring the origin energy of the secret realm. In other words, this giant egg was using the entire secret realm as a breeding ground for it to hatch. Is it nirvana rebirth or self-sealing to heal? Qin Feng stared at the giant egg. He was very experienced and had seen many similar situations. Qin Feng scanned the surroundings of the giant egg with his divine will. To Qin Feng's surprise, there were no restrictions in the surroundings. Had the power of the restrictions been worn down by time, or had it been completely devoured by the giant egg? Qin Feng quietly extended a trace of his divine will and probed the giant egg. A trace of aura followed the divine will and went deep into his soul. A more intuitive sense of majesty was reflected in his heart. Powerful, very powerful. Qin Feng hurriedly withdrew this trace of divine will, but there was still a trace of shock in his eyes. In front of this trace of aura, Qin Feng was like an ant. This kind of insignificance made Qin Feng feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. He raised his head to look at the giant egg again. This giant egg was like a divine mountain that stood between heaven and earth. He even lost the courage to look at it. This trace of aura had unknowingly affected his mind. Qin Feng hurriedly calmed his mind and smoothed out the fluctuating distracting thoughts. This thought was like a sharp sword that cut through this kind of fear and feeling of insignificance. Finally, this feeling passed. Qin Feng raised his head. At this moment, the giant egg in front of him had returned to its original appearance. Qin Feng realized that after this kind of shock and fluctuation, his soul true body had become purer and more condensed. It was as if many distracting thoughts had melted away. It was easier for him to comprehend some martial Tao cultivation techniques and divine powers. After waking up, Qin Feng looked at the stone egg. Suddenly, he chuckled and appeared around the stone egg in a flash. Qin Feng had now confirmed that this stone egg should be in a deep sleep. It was just like some seriously injured gods in the legends that were hibernating on Mount Yang, or some innate spirit embryo that was about to be born. It was absorbing the essence of heaven and earth to develop. As long as he didn't provoke it, there shouldn't be any other accidents. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the small half of the green spiritual milk in the pool. His eyes revealed a trace of gold light like a money grubber. The spiritual milk in this spiritual pool was condensed from the many spiritual roots, spiritual herbs, and even the life essence of the divine-level great earth ancient tree on this island. Even a drop of this life essence could revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones. Even the spring water in the spring of life was not as effective as this pool of life essence. Looking at the giant stone egg in the lotus, Qin Feng felt an itch in his heart. Qin Feng quietly glanced at the huge egg as he muttered to himself. "It's fine, it should be fine. I'll just take a little bit is enough. It shouldn't wake up, it shouldn't wake up." Licking his dry lips, Qin Feng quietly walked to the edge of the pool step by step. The pool was as white as jade, about 10 feet high from the top to the bottom. A small half of the pool of jasper-like life essence was emitting a trace of rich life fragrance. Standing on top of the pool, Qin Feng lay on his stomach like a dog. His nose twitched, and with a slight sniff, a wisp of extremely pure life essence directly entered his body. Qin Feng felt as if all the pores on his body were being hammered and massaged by small hammers, so comfortable that he felt like he was flying. Good stuff, good stuff. Gulping, Qin Feng quietly glanced at the stone egg. Seeing that the stone egg was not moving, Qin Feng immediately stretched out one hand. Silently stretching out one hand, he operated the essence extraction technique. A whirlpool appeared in the center of his palm like a water pump. Streams of jade-like liquid life essence turned into a curtain of water at the bottom of the pool and rushed up against the current, being silently stolen by Qin Feng. As soon as the cyan life essence entered his body, Qin Feng's eyes widened. The cool aura surged from his palm to every part of his body. Qin Feng felt as if he had run into a hot spring, and even his soul was soaring. At this moment, if there were outsiders around, they would notice that Qin Feng's entire body had turned into a jade-green gem. His internal organs, tendons, meridians, flesh, skin, and even his hair were emitting a jade-green fragrance of life. In the next moment, crackle, 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 the sound of bones and tendons vibrating like thunder. Clang, clang, clang. Wisps of energy flowed on his skin, as if they were divine weapons with peerless sharpness. The third layer of the 8 Desolation indestructible mystic art was broken through in just a quarter of an hour. Chapter 464. With every step forward in the 8 Desolation immortal mysterious art, Qin Feng's martial path true body was one step closer to immortality. With the third layer of the 8 Desolation immortal mysterious art, Qin Feng would have a very abnormal life force recovery ability. As long as his head was not blown apart, even if Qin Feng's body was left with only his head, he could still safely reassemble his body. This layer originally corresponded to the Sea of Reincarnation realm. At this time, Qin Feng actually relied on this pool of heaven and earth spirit milk to directly cultivate this layer in the Meridian's condensation realm. Next was the fourth layer of the Eight Desolation Immortal Mysterious Art. If he cultivated to the fourth layer, at that time, even if his head was blown apart, he could still be reborn from a drop of blood. However, to cultivate to the fourth layer, he needed to cultivate 10 Divine Treasure True Acupoints. These 10 Divine Treasure True Acupoints were located in 10 extremely hidden places on the top of his head. They were mapped out by Qin Feng according to many body refining cultivation method. Every time he opened one, he would obtain some mysterious power. These 10 Divine Treasure True Acupoints were Fetal Light, Refreshing Spirit, Secluded Essence, Corpse Dog, Concealed Arrow, Ean of Sparrow, Seizing Thief, Non-Poison, Filth Removal, and Smelly Lung. Once he opened all of them, the last flaw of the Eight Desolation immortal body would be fixed, and he would be able to reach the blood rebirth realm. When he broke through to the third layer of the Eight Desolation immortal mysterious art, Qin Feng's strength did not just soar. Some subtle changes were also happening. Qin Feng's appearance was being adjusted slightly. This was not a change that Qin Feng had initiated. Rather, it was due to his instinctive evolution. Some of the flawed areas were being rapidly adjusted by the dark green lightning. His teeth were becoming round and sparkling. His appearance was also being adjusted. However, these were only minor adjustments. However, just these minor changes made people feel as if they had taken on a whole new look. Although Qin Feng's original appearance could not be said to be ugly, it could at most be considered delicate and could not be considered a handsome man. At this time, after many minor adjustments, a flawless temperament appeared, and he suddenly became a rare handsome man in the world. After breaking through to the third layer of the Eight Desolation immortal mysterious art, Qin Feng immediately became clear-headed. He glanced at the bottom of the pool. There was still a lot of heaven and earth spirit milk left in the pool. At this moment, the true power in his body was like a river of stars. His true power had increased by 3 times, but Qin Feng felt that he had not yet reached the limit of the pulse condensation stage. There's still so much left. Stealing a little is stealing, stealing all is stealing. Anyway, he doesn't seem to have noticed. I might as well steal all of it. Having gained some benefits, Qin Feng became a lot bolder. He operated the essence extracting technique at full power, and swallowed the cyan heaven and earth essence milk in the pool like a whale swallowing a whale. Focusing his energy, Qin Feng controlled the wisps of life essence and sent them toward the last flaw of his martial path true body. A moment later, a hidden star in his head lit up, like a star in the darkness. This is the first Divine Treasure True Acupoint Embryonic Light. With great joy in his heart, Qin Feng controlled the essence of the heaven and earth spiritual milk and sent it along the countless tiny meridians in his head, condensing into this acupuncture point. The head is the most important part of the human body. This was known as the chief, and also known as the heavenly spirit. Any problem with the meridians was no small matter. Qin Feng patiently controlled the life force in the heaven and earth spiritual milk. Wisps of life force poured in, and this divine treasure true acupoint became brighter and brighter. It turned from an illusion to a real star. Finally, at this moment, the life star evolved from the divine treasure true acupoint stabilized. Success! Qin Feng was overjoyed. At this moment, his entire mind shook, and an indescribable radiance suddenly swept over from the life star evolved from the embryonic light acupoint. This radiance enveloped the soul true body in the depths of his spirit sea. This is the power of embryonic light. Qin Feng's eyes were not unfamiliar with this radiance. With a thought, his soul was instantly submerged by the power of embryonic light. In an instant, Qin Feng's situation changed. At this moment, a cloud-white spirit ring appeared behind his soul-true body. This was a soul-type sacred art born from the condensation of the embryonic light acupoint. Embryonic light spirit transformation. This kind of soul-type sacred art was somewhat useless. The use of this sacred art was very simple. It could give spiritual intelligence, and it could allow intelligent primal chaos beasts to possess true spirituality. After the condensation of the embryonic light acupoint, there was not much heaven and earth spiritual milk left at the bottom of the pool. Something appeared in the heaven and earth spiritual milk. It was a huge corpse. This was the corpse of a giant. Even a dying tiger leaves behind its might. This corpse still had a trace of extremely heavy might left behind. This might was much more terrifying than Qin Feng's when he was at his peak. Looking at this corpse, Qin Feng's expression became extremely solemn. This was a god's corpse, the corpse of a true demon god. Could this be the corpse of the ancient mountain god that mysteriously disappeared? Qin Feng had a deep impression of this majestic aura that was like the mountains and seas. This was the influence of the 5 mountain gods. This god's corpse overlapped with the figure of the ancient mountain god, creating such a portrait. This demon god's corpse seemed to have lost all its blood essence. Only then did Qin Feng see clearly that the huge earth-yellow lotus was growing on the chest of this god's corpse. It bloomed from the heart. Who the hell did this? Did they kill the ancient mountain god himself? Or did they kill the person who killed the ancient mountain god? Qin Feng's expression turned solemn. If it was the ancient mountain god himself, it would be fine. But if it was the person who killed the ancient mountain god, then it was too terrifying. Using an ancient god's corpse as nourishment and absorbing countless spirit roots and spirit herbs as nourishment, the spirit embryo nurtured by this method would definitely have terrifying aptitude. An ancient prodigy that was born in such a way was extremely rare even in the Golden Era. They were the cream of the crop. One of them was born as a martial arts overlord. With just a little bit of cultivation, they could become a supreme expert. Becoming a supreme expert would be as easy as flipping one's hand. This would be the most terrifying competitor on the path to becoming a demon god. A trace of killing intent appeared in Qin Feng's heart, but it quickly disappeared. He knew that he did not have the ability to kill the existence in this stone egg. The essence of the ancient mountain god's corpse had been completely sucked dry by the existence in the stone egg. In addition to the spirit roots and spirit herbs' essence, the existence in the stone egg was about to be born. If he forcefully attacked, it would definitely cause the existence in the stone egg to be born prematurely. Against an ancient martial arts overlord, thinking of this possibility, Qin Feng shook his head. He did not have the slightest chance of victory. Although Qin Feng had been shining brightly and had suppressed many peerless prodigies, he was still a far cry from these terrifying existences that had sealed themselves in the ancient era. Many thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qin Feng's eyes turned red. Although he could not kill it, he could still take advantage of it. After absorbing so much good stuff to grow, you should also share some with me. My body is mortal and needs nourishment. Yes, Qin Feng was about to go crazy. He was ready to pluck the tooth from the tiger's mouth and steal the stone egg's essence. Once he succeeded, Qin Feng's aptitude would undergo an earth-shattering transformation. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was a carp transforming into a dragon. Qin Feng knew how dangerous his decision was. Once the stone egg was awakened and discovered a thief, it would immediately kill him in anger. Chapter 465. Qin Feng was not blinded by greed when he made up his mind to steal the stone egg. Qin Feng had thought about it carefully and believed that there was a certain chance of success. Opportunities were often accompanied by risk. Originally, before seeing this stone egg, Qin Feng had always thought that it was very likely that he would become a demon god in the Golden Great Era. However, Qin Feng still underestimated the intensity of the competition in the future. Qin Feng had repeatedly overestimated those ancient geniuses. However, it was not as shocking as the one before him. With a demon god as a cover, a demon god kingdom as a hotbed, and countless spiritual roots, spiritual herbs, and even divine spiritual roots as nourishment, the existence born in this way was simply a natural demon god. Obviously, there were many ancient geniuses with aptitudes similar to the stone egg in front of him in the Golden Great Era. There might even be more incredible existences. Such competitors were simply hopeless. Once the ancient creature in the stone egg woke up, it would definitely become a demon god in an extremely short period of time. In heaven and earth, luck was limited. Even in the Golden Great Era, the position of demon god was not unlimited. Once missed, one would have to wait for another era. Qin Feng had already tasted the taste of waiting. If I don't go crazy, I won't live. Even if this matter was extremely dangerous, Qin Feng had to take a gamble. Once his aptitude could break through the barrier of the flawless sacred body and advance to the 9th stage demon god body, Qin Feng would completely bridge the gap between him and the ancient geniuses. With a light body, Qin Feng tried his best to restrain any malice and killing intent. He was like a gentle breeze. In an instant, he was more than 10 steps away from the giant egg. Step by step, with each step, Qin Feng's state of mind calmed down. The giant egg did not move at all, which made Qin Feng secretly sigh in relief. Sure enough, although this kind of existence has amazing spiritual sense, it is still in the process of being nurtured. As long as there are no malicious thoughts, it will not be awakened. Qin Feng was now like a blood-sucking mosquito that had encountered a sleeping person. As long as the sound of flapping wings was not too loud, the chances of being discovered were very small. The dozen or so steps were very fast. Qin Feng's expression didn't change in the slightest. He glanced at the giant egg and glanced at the giant god corpse beneath his feet. The primeval demon heart sutra circulated, refining all the evil thoughts, murderous thoughts, as well as all sorts of shock and nervousness. He gently stretched out his hand and placed it on the stone egg's shell. A majestic spiritual profound qi came through his skin, and a kind of instinct awakened in his body. Desire. It was an extreme desire. It was like an imperfect person who instinctively yearned for perfection. Don't rush. Don't be nervous. We have to take it step by step. Qin Feng forcibly suppressed this instinct. As a blood-stealing mosquito, he could not be too impatient when inserting the needle. Otherwise, it was very likely that he would wake up his master and be slapped to death. Even though he was circulating the primordial demon heart sutra, his heart was still beating rapidly. This was a mixture of desire and nervousness that came from the depths of his blood vessels. Qin Feng's expression didn't change. He was like a cool breeze. The beating of his heart had at most changed from a gentle breeze to a cool night breeze. After testing for a while and seeing that the giant egg didn't have any reaction, Qin Feng slowly circulated the essence extraction technique. A trace of invisible suction force was emitted from the hand that was gently touching the stone egg's shell. This force silently penetrated into the stone egg. The spiritual profound qi in the stone egg was like an ocean, extremely majestic. Qin Feng's eyes light up. He forcibly restrains his urge to swallow and uses the great art of extracting marrow and transforming essence magic to quietly absorb a trace of spiritual essence to test it. As the trace of spiritual profound qi fused into his body, Qin Feng felt that his soul was ascending. There seemed to be spirituality in his bones and tendons, and it was combining with a mysterious force in his body. There was a trace of demonic god's characteristics. It was a trace of dark blue brilliance. It was the brilliance of water attribute. The mortal bones in his body were becoming the divine bones unique to the innate demonic god's body. The flawless sacred body in his body absorbed the spiritual profound chi of the stone egg. Qin Feng's aptitude was changing toward the water attribute demonic god's body. Just as Qin Feng had expected, the stone egg had no reaction after a trace of spiritual profound chi was stolen. It was as if it had been bitten by a mosquito. Good, keep up the good work. In order to not wake up the existence in the stone egg, Qin Feng maintained the speed of stealing. Traces of extremely pure spiritual profound chi fused into his body. The spiritual profound chi first went toward the two sternum. At that moment, Qin Feng looked inside himself and saw that one of the two sternum was dyed with a trace of light blue. This was the sea god's bone. It was a type of water attribute divine bone. Having a divine bone meant that one was born with the aptitude of a demonic god. With the sea god's bone, Qin Feng was born with the sea god's body. The speed at which he cultivated water attribute techniques would be 10 times or dozens of times faster than other martial arts geniuses. There were also differences in the innate demonic god's body. The more divine bones in the body, the faster the cultivation speed. According to Qin Feng's knowledge, the real geniuses of the ancient times usually had divine bones all over their bodies. Because of that, they were born with the strength of a martial arts giant. Finally, after an hour, the first sternum had completely turned light blue. This divine bone emitted a light blue divine glow. When this divine bone was formed, the speed of the galaxy true power in Qin Feng's body had doubled. At that moment, Qin Feng could be said to have the innate demonic god's body. Qin Feng looked at the stone egg. The spiritual profound chi was just a drop in the ocean for this stone egg. Qin Feng continued to maintain this speed. A steady stream of spiritual profound chi poured in from his arm. Traces of spiritual profound chi went through the first sternum and condensed toward the second sternum. Not long after, the second sternum glowed with a blue brilliance. Then, the vertebrae formed a human body. After an hour, the vertebrae also transformed into divine bones. After stealing so much spiritual profound chi, Qin Feng felt that the spiritual profound chi in the stone egg was still as majestic as before. It didn't seem to have decreased in the slightest. Good heavens! How many spiritual herbs and spirit roots did this stone egg prepare? Qin Feng thought of the divine-level great earth ancient tree. Gritting his teeth, Qin Feng gathered his courage and continued to steal. The fourth and fifth divine bones emitted a light blue divine glow one after another. The bones in his left and right arms were formed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Qin Feng felt that his affinity with the water element energy had reached an unprecedented level. After the fifth divine bone was formed, Qin Feng finally felt that the majestic spiritual profound chi in the stone egg had weakened a little. However, the creature in the stone egg didn't seem to have any reaction. Qin Feng continued to steal the spiritual profound chi. The sixth and seventh divine bones were formed. The leg bones were formed. When the sixth and seventh divine bones were formed, Qin Feng felt as if he had become the king of the ocean. There were countless water-type divine abilities in his mind, and he had comprehended most of them in a single thought. How terrifying was that? Even with Qin Feng's temperament, he almost screamed. No wonder ordinary geniuses can't compete with ancient prodigies. Who the F***ck can compete with such a cultivation speed? Secretly smacking his lips, Qin Feng looked at the last two bones in his body. As long as he refined these last two bones into divine bones, he would truly have a complete natural-born demon god body. Chapter 466. Looking at the last two divine bones, Qin Feng was a little hesitant. After stealing so much spiritual essence, he was already close to a limit. If he continued to steal, Qin Feng had a feeling that the existence in the stone egg might wake up at any time. It was like a mosquito sucking blood. If it sucked too much blood, the host would be alerted. There are only two divine bones left. I will leave immediately after condensing the last two divine bones. Qin Feng's eyes were burning with greed. Suppressing the hesitation in his heart, he continued to extract the spiritual essence from the stone egg with his palm. After 100 breaths, the 8th divine bone was condensed. There was only one divine bone left in his body, and it was also the most important one, the skull. As long as the skull was condensed, Qin Feng would have the complete sea god's body. After an unknown period of time, wisps of spiritual essence were extracted, but there was still no change in the skull. Qin Feng became more and more anxious. Qin Feng's powerful spiritual sense was warning him, and his heart was beating rapidly. After 200 breaths, the 9th skull finally lit up with a faint blue divine radiance. Soon, just 20 breaths more, 20 breaths more. Qin Feng's eyes lit up. At this moment, an invisible force suddenly emerged from the stone egg. It was like a sleeping dragon had suddenly stretched out its sharp claws. A majestic force flowed from the stone egg along Qin Feng's arm and into Qin Feng's body like lightning. It exploded inside his body with a bang. Poochie! Blood splattered, and Qin Feng felt a sharp pain in his chest. He lowered his head and sucked in a breath of cold air. A huge bloody hole had been blasted in his chest by this force. The 3rd layer of the 8 desolation indestructible body was easily penetrated by this blow. Bastard, you dare to steal my spiritual essence? You are courting death. At the same time, a deep and gloomy voice came from the stone egg. Qin Feng's eyes were cold. Not only did he not let go, his whole body suddenly lay on the stone egg like a gecko sticking to the stone egg. Madness flashed in his eyes, and he used all his strength to operate the marrow-extracting technique. He plundered the spiritual essence in the stone egg in a way 100 times crazier than before. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, a surge of spiritual energy was forcefully extracted from the stone egg and entered Qin Feng's body. After obtaining this enormous spiritual energy essence, his entire skull erupted with an extremely dazzling blue divine radiance. Within his divine body, the 9 pieces of divine bones were connected by strands of blue divine radiance. Qin Feng's entire body was bathed in the ocean blue divine radiance, making him look like a true king of the ocean. Despicable ant, you're dead. The creature inside the stone egg was enraged. Sensing the loss of its spiritual essence, an incomparable yellow divine light shot out from the stone egg and pierced through Qin Feng's chest. This earthy yellow divine light smashed Qin Feng's Star River True Power, which had reached the 3rd stage of the Extreme Tao, and landed on Qin Feng's body. Kacha kacha! Qin Feng's body, which was lying on the stone egg, was sent flying hundreds of feet away like a cannonball. Bang! It was as if he had hit the ground at noon. With a loud bang, the whole earth shook. However, in the next moment, a figure rose from the big pit and rushed towards the cloud stairs of the floating island. While escaping, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with an extremely horrified expression. The strength of the living creature within the stone egg was simply terrifying to the extreme. In front of this stone egg, he was like a child encountering a giant. He could not stop it at all. Even the extreme 3rd layer celestial river true force in his body, which he was so proud of, could not withstand a single blow from the creature inside the stone egg. You want to run? The creature inside the stone egg was furious. At this time, it realized that almost 1/5 of its spiritual essence had been stolen in an instant. It would be difficult for its divine body to reach perfection. This hatred made the creature inside the stone egg want to pull out Qin Feng's tendons and skin him alive. A huge stone fist caught up with Qin Feng from behind. The stone fist opened and turned into a palm that covered the sky. In Qin Feng's spiritual sense, it was not a palm above his head, but countless mountains pressing down. His whole body was suppressed, and it was extremely difficult for him to move. Once he was suppressed, Qin Feng's ending would definitely be extremely tragic. Qin Feng's mind was shrouded in a thick layer of dark clouds, and his whole body was covered with a chill, chaos-tide extinction, 11th Sword. Qin Feng roared and poured all his cultivation into the North Underworld Godly Water Sword. In the crisis of life and death, Qin Feng's body was sublimated to the extreme. There was only one thought left in his mind, which was to cut through everything in front of him. Qin Feng broke out the 11th sword like never before. Rumble! An extremely sharp sword light appeared in the entire void. The vast sword light was like a river of stars as it pierced through the void. The moment the 5 fingers arrived, it cut open a crack and quietly landed on the cloud stairs. A human figure suddenly rushed out of the floating island and rapidly descended the cloud stairs. Rumble! On the spot, the palm fell. With a loud boom, the entire floating island was broken in half, and countless rocks fell from the sky. On the cloud stairs, Qin Feng glanced at this scene from the corner of his eye. A layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. If he didn't dodge just now, he would have been turned into a meat patty. Damn it! The creature in the stone egg was furious. A sky full of yellow light exploded from the stone egg. Dense black cracks appeared in the void, as if it couldn't withstand the power of the mountain. The creature in the stone egg was very angry, but it was not the time to be born yet. If it was forced to come out, there would be unpredictable risk. Kid, I remember your aura. 5 years, at most 5 years, and I will be able to come out. 5 years later, I will definitely find you and cut you into pieces. After venting, the creature in the stone egg took root on the floating island again. It was unknown if it had learned its lesson this time, but countless yellow streams of light appeared around the stone egg and spread over the island. It was obvious at a glance that it was an extremely powerful earth elemental divine power. On the cloud stairs, Qin Feng slowed down when he saw that the creature in the stone egg didn't pursue him. He glanced at the huge hole in his chest. Most of his organs had been blasted to smithereens. If it were anyone else, even a martial powerhouse, they would have treated it as death. Around the wound, there was a strange yellow energy that was slowly petrifying the area around the wound, preventing it from healing. Furthermore, it was spreading to the other parts of his body, turning him into a rock. Mountain Divine Law. This fellow seems to have plundered a portion of the mountain ancient god's powers. If not, he wouldn't be this powerful. Qin Feng's expression sank. A divine law was a power that belonged to a Fian celestial level expert. The wound on his chest was healing. After extracting a portion of the Chaos Heavens Yuan Qi, Qin Feng forcefully circulated the Chaos Tidal Land of Extinction's 11th sword, rapidly recovering his true force. Wisps of galactic true force surged out from his wound and began shattering, refining the strange energy that petrified his body. Even though the strange energy was extremely tenacious, it gradually shattered when the galactic true force surged over. After removing the strange energy from his wound, Qin Feng's 8 desolation indestructible body began to show its might. Moments later, the terrifying hole in his chest vanished. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Feng revealed a smile. Even though he had been severely injured and was on the brink of death, he still managed to survive. But compared to what he had gained, it was nothing worth mentioning. With a complete sea god body, Qin Feng's talent was in no way inferior to any ancient elite. He had also opened up the distance between him and many so-called monstrous geniuses. Chapter 467. In the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm, wisps of Yuan Qi surged into his body. Qin Feng's injuries healed very quickly. By the time he walked out the door, his terrifying injuries were mostly healed. At the door of the main hall, a group of Xingqian school experts had yet to leave. Sha sha. Upon hearing the sound of footsteps, all of them cast their gazes in the direction of the main hall. They saw a black-robed youth slowly walk out of the main hall. He was about 17 or 18 years old, and had a thin figure. His black hair draped over his shoulders, but when he raised his head, a group of girls could be seen. Some of the young girls in the field couldn't help but be slightly startled. They saw that the facial features of that person were distinct as if they were carved, and he had an unusually cold temperament. Especially his pair of pitch-black eyes that were deep and bright like the stars in the sky. Just a glance was enough to entice them. Qin Feng. In the main hall, Yi Ding's expression was extremely gloomy. He had taken in Qin Feng's changes. Clearly, Qin Feng had obtained some benefits that he was unaware of. By the side, Zhong Wuxiang, Dong Hao, Shi Qing, Wei Huang, Ren Xiaoyao, Chao Chen, and Zhaitian were all staring at Qin Feng. Everyone could sense that Qin Feng had changed greatly from before he entered the hall. Although no one could put their finger on it, they instinctively sensed a massive threat from Qin Feng. This was something that had not happened before. It was especially so for a few martial Dao experts who cultivated in water elemental cultivation technique. They clearly sensed a repressive feeling. In a corner, Jiang Chao, who cultivated in water elemental cultivation techniques, sensed it even more directly. A supreme treasure deep in his soul was trembling violently, as though it was about to leave his body and lunge at Qin Feng. What's going on? Why is my Black Emperor title banner so uneasy? Jiang Chao's expression changed. The Black Emperor title banner was a primordial treasure he had obtained. It was a divine artifact used by the ancient water god to govern the water of the world. It was a water elemental treasure, but now it was betraying its owner and submitting to someone else. Jiang Chao's face flushed red. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as if he had sensed something. He tilted his head and looked at Jiang Chao. It was as if he could see through Jiang Chao's soul and landed on the strange black banner. The black banner buzzed as if it had sensed Qin Feng's gaze and was about to fly out of his body. Jiang Chao was anxious. This was a treasure that he'd risked his life to obtain, and if this treasure were to fly away, then his strength would be reduced sharply by more than half. He activated the black water true power in his entire body to suppress it, but this treasure seemed determined to fly out. Water-type treasure. Qin Feng could tell that this was a high-grade water-type treasure with tyrannical power. Qin Feng reckoned that the water-type treasure had sensed his sea god physique and knew that if it fell into his hands, it would be greatly beneficial to the treasure itself. Qin Feng shook his head. Under the scrutinizing eyes of the crowd, he walked to Jiang Chao's side and patted his shoulder. A trace of true power flowed into Jiang Chao's body, helping him to calm down the Black Emperor title banner as Jiang Chao's expression changed. Jiang Chao was slightly stunned as he looked at Qin Feng in surprise. Qin Feng nodded slightly at him and walked away. It wasn't that Qin Feng looked down on the Black Emperor title banner, but he had no conflict of interest with Jiang Chao. Furthermore, the two of them had some friendship. Although Qin Feng loved money and treasures as much as his life, he was not without a bottom line. Although he didn't know what had happened to Qin Feng, Yi Ding was certain that Qin Feng had encountered a great opportunity. Yi Ding looked at the disciples around him, and his eyes flickered with a trace of coldness. He wanted to immediately go up and suppress Qin Feng and force Qin Feng to hand over the opportunity, but he didn't have the confidence to do so. The eyes of the other inner sect disciples flickered. Most of them had the same thought. Qin Feng's strength had always been tyrannical, and he was not inferior to the elites among them. Now they knew that his strength had increased greatly, and they had no chance of winning. However, they couldn't help but feel an itch in their hearts. However, since Qin Feng was able to walk out of this shrine unscathed, perhaps this shrine isn't as dangerous as we imagined. Soon, many inner sect disciples turned their gazes back to the shrine. Treasures moved people's hearts. Some inner sect disciples didn't think that they were weaker than Qin Feng. Among them were Yi Ding, Dong Hao, Chao Chen, Zhizai, and Xia Yu. They hesitated for a moment before finally choosing to enter the shrine. But very quickly, the few of them rushed out of the temple with their faces covered in dust. Each of them looked pale. In the nameless valley, the void rippled like water, and a figure flew out. After exiting the main hall, Qin Feng directly left the Earth's secret realm. During this trip, not only did he obtain his target, the mountain god pearl, but he also gained a lot. At this point, Qin Feng was already satisfied. Qin Feng's next step was to find a place to cultivate the 5 sacred mountains, break through to the Sea of Reincarnation Realm, and then head to Cloud Lake City to complete his mission. 1 month later. Fei Tian Town. Fei Tian Town was one of the satellite cities in the capital of stars, Weiyu City. Although it was just a town, its scale wasn't inferior to a small city in the Yan country. People came and went, and merchants came and went in an endless stream. Standing on the second floor of the restaurant, Qin Feng would occasionally see teams of sternly dressed star soldiers patrolling the streets, dressed in majestic star armors. Star Soldier, Star General, Commander, Deputy General, Commander, Marshal, Heavenly King, and Star Lord. This was another system department of Xingqian School that was responsible for the war in the capital of stars. If ordinary service disciples couldn't become outer sect disciples, they would be sent out. Many would choose to enter the Star Lord division and become a Star Soldier. For inner sect disciples like Qin Feng, if they were willing to enter the Star Lord division, they would directly become a Star General or a Commander. Almost every year, Xingqian School would send a large number of experts to the Star Lord division. On one hand, they would fight against the 12 races of the Demon Temple. On the other hand, they would enter the front lines with the Heaven and Earth sect and the Biling sect to prevent these 2 sects from infiltrating. There was also a portion that entered and stayed near the capital of stars to protect the All Stars College and Xingqian School. In Xingqian School, inner sect disciples who were in charge were the real big shot. Their words were even more important than a king. Many kings even married their princesses as concubines in order to curry favor with inner sect disciples. Of course, entering the Star Lord division was a way out. Xingqian School was a huge entity and had many departments. For example, the Supervision Department was in charge of many countries and sections. It had great power. Or the Alchemy Hall was in charge of collecting spirit herbs and controlling the lifeblood of many disciples. Even the Medicine King Hall was a subordinate of the Alchemy Hall. There were many ways out. Every path led to the position of a direct disciple or even the sect master. One of them was to become a marquis. Like Xinxiu Yiding, Ling Shuanghua, and Qin Feng, they had more freedom. However, it wasn't easy to control a city. Just as Qin Feng's figure appeared in Fei Tian Town, the members of the Qin family who had been traveling for 3 months came back again. Many elites also came to Fei Tian Town to meet up with Qin Feng. They were ready to go to Cloud Lake City to help Qin Feng establish the Qin family there. Chapter 468. Flying Sky Town, in the middle of town's Xinglong restaurant. In a private room that faced the street, Qin Feng's collateral relative was sitting on a mat. Astral quintessential force was flowing within him. In the 5 spirit meridians, 5 divine mountain phantoms appeared. After the fire elemental divine mountain, the earth elemental divine mountain, metal elemental divine mountain, water elemental divine mountain, and wood elemental divine mountain appeared one after another. Among them, the fire elemental divine mountain was the most condensed, followed by the wood elemental divine mountain. The wood elemental divine mountain was refined by Qin Feng using the essence of many spirit herbs in the chaos heavens. Next was the water elemental divine mountain. It was condensed by Qin Feng using the essence of many spirit springs. Together with his divine sea god body, the water elemental divine mountain's might was in no way inferior to the wood elemental and fire elemental divine mountains. Next was the earth elemental divine mountain condensed from the mountain god bead. The metal elemental divine mountain condensed from the great desolate iron tree's essence was the weakest. With the cultivation of the 5 mountain divine mountains mystic technique, Qin Feng's foundation was established. As long as he worked hard, Qin Feng could break through to the Sea of Rebirth realm at any time. Qin Feng was in no hurry to break through to the Sea of Rebirth realm. The three realms of the Sea of Rebirth realm were the Divine Sea realm, the Spatial realm, and the Empyrean realm. As long as he broke through to the Sea of Rebirth realm, Qin Feng could directly break through to the second realm, the Spatial realm. Gaining insights into the power of space was not difficult for Qin Feng, who had the Chaos Tree, who had a Void Elemental Divine Grade Spirit Root. Even the power of the Empyrean realm was a piece of cake for Qin Feng. To put it bluntly, the power of the Empyrean realm was a deeper understanding of the power of the Void, as well as its usage. The strongest point of a Sea of Rebirth realm expert was not their other martial Tao divine powers, but their usage and control of the power of space. As long as he had time, Qin Feng would naturally reach the Empyrean realm. To Qin Feng, there was only one choice for him: to choose a path to break through to the Nirvana realm. It was to gain insights into origins. There were several options before Qin Feng. One of them was the water-type origin source. With the sea god's physique, comprehending the water-type origin source would be easy. Next was the star source. The primal chaos star secret art had a solid foundation. Comprehending the star source was a very good choice for Qin Feng. Then there was the disaster origin. Qin Feng wanted to cultivate the twilight of the gods, and he also had the supreme treasure of the demonic path, the abyssal demon diagram. Comprehending the disaster origin had once been the best choice for Qin Feng. The other type was the space origin. A descendant of the Chaos Tree with a Void God's spiritual root and a part of the Space-Time God's divine artifact, the Space-Time Dual-Phase Scripture, and the Universe Book that symbolized space. It was a very good choice to comprehend the origin of space. To be honest, these four choices were difficult for Qin Feng to make. By comprehending the water element, Qin Feng was confident that he could attain the body of a water demon god in the shortest time possible. By comprehending the star source, with the many resources of Xingqian school and the foundation of his natal star, the primeval star, it did not seem difficult. The disaster origin was extremely grand and powerful. Once Qin Feng became a disaster demon god, he would be in charge of disasters. After attaining the demon god Tao, his strength would far surpass other demon gods. The space origin was one of the best attributes. It was known as the second strongest origin along with the time origin. If he could become a space demon god, Qin Feng might have a chance to obtain the inheritance of the space-time god. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Qin Feng sighed softly. It was really difficult to make a choice. At this moment, there was a commotion in Xinglong restaurant. A series of footsteps came from the staircase. Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. With his divine sense, a group of people appeared outside his private room on the second floor. Have we arrived? He opened his eyes. At this moment there was a knock on the door. Come in. Hearing the familiar voice from the private room, the respectful figures outside the door were overjoyed. They pushed open the door of the private room. Qin Qinyun, Qin Qinhong, and Qin Qinyue, elders of the Qin family in Shanghai town, greet the Lord. Qin Yuemei and Qin Xinwu, disciples of the Qin family, greet the Lord. The five figures knelt on one knee with their heads lowered. Qin Feng raised his head and looked at the five people in front of him. His eyes fell on the three elders of the Qin family in the lead. They were two men and one woman. Qin Qinyue was a beautiful middle-aged woman with a graceful figure. She wore a long green dress and no makeup. Her manners were decent. Other than Qin Qinyun, who was a master of the extreme realm of the Meridian's condensation realm, the other two elders were warriors of the black realm of the Meridian's condensation realm. Behind the three of them was a man and a woman. Of the two young men, the man had an ordinary face. His hands and feet were thick, and he carried a long knife on his back. It was obvious that he was good at knife technique. The woman was charming and had a great figure. She looked at Qin Feng and occasionally glanced at him. There was a trace of blush on her fair face. She was exceptionally beautiful. A moment later, after some understanding, Qin Feng had a rough understanding of the identities of the 5 people. The 5 of them were the best of the Qin family. Among the 3 elders, Qin Qingyue was good at financial affairs and was good at managing internal affairs. Qin Qinghong was good at social interaction. Qin Qinyun was the instructor of the Qin family. He was very good at training the disciples and arranging the troop. The 2 people behind him were the strongest of the Qin family's younger generation, other than Qin Tianjiao. They were both at the 11th heaven of the martial arts path. With the Qin family's heritage, it must have taken a lot of effort to cultivate 2 geniuses at the 11th heaven of the martial arts path. In addition to the 5 people, there were 12 other capable people in the Qin family. They had been arranged by the Qin family to assist Qin Feng. Qin Feng could see that the Qin family of the Mountain River City had put in a lot of effort this time. After talking for a while, Qin Qinyun said, "My lord, our flying sky town is thousands of miles away from Cloud Lake City. There are many places that are difficult to travel. Which route would you like to choose?" The 5 people looked at Qin Feng and the map on the table. Qin Feng frowned. If he was alone and flew in the air, it wouldn't take long for him to travel a distance of 10,000 miles. He would be able to take whichever path he wanted. However, he had brought so many people. The strongest of the Qin family was only in the Earth realm of the condensing meridians. Many of these people didn't have the ability to fly. There were many places between Flying Sky Town and Cloud Lake City that had not been developed. Not only were there many fierce beasts, savage beasts, and foreign tribes, but there were also people from the Demon Temple. If he wasn't careful with this group of people, there might be casualties. These people were the foundation of the Qin family in Cloud Lake City. Qin Feng was counting on them to help him run Cloud Lake City. He couldn't let them all die on the way. Qin Feng's gaze swept across the map, looking for the best route. At this moment, just as Qin Feng was choosing the route, a group of people were having a discussion in an inn in Thundercloud Town, which was adjacent to Flying Sky Town. The leader was none other than the Flower Queen, who had been injured by Qin Feng and had been recuperating for a long time. She was wearing a long black dress. She was graceful and elegant. It seemed that her injuries had healed. Flower Queen, according to the report from the secret agent, Qin Feng has appeared in Flying Sky Town and is in contact with the Qin family of the Mountain River City? The beautiful eyes of the Flower Empress flickered. Her beautiful eyes flickered with the charm of an enchantress. People of the Qin clan. It seems like Qin Feng is preparing to bring this group of burdens to take over Cloud Lake City. This is good news. On the side, Aning smiled coldly. Madam is right. If he goes alone, we might not be able to do anything to him. However, with these people, we might have a chance. Chapter 469. She was extremely fearful of Qin Feng, who had injured her previously. However, she also knew that Qin Feng wasn't easy to deal with. She had come prepared this time. With that treasure, Qin Feng, even if you're a martial Dao overlord, you'll still die. Her eyes were filled with a myriad of emotions, but a cold glint flashed by. At the same time, on a small mountain outside dangerous Moon City, a young girl wrapped in a white veil was frowning. Young miss, are you still unable to sense Miss Shurtong's whereabouts? Could it be that Miss Shurtong has already been killed by that human? It was an old man with a tall build and a head full of white hair. He looked like a male lion. This was a martial arts overlord from the heavenly lion race. The white-clothed young girl was an old acquaintance of Qin Feng. During the battle at Skyscraper Ridge, he had almost captured this young girl. She was the saintess of the heavenly lion race, Shurhan. Third uncle, although I share the same mother as second sister and can sometimes communicate with her heart, I might not be able to find her if second sister is determined to block my senses. Shurhan's beautiful eyes were filled with a trace of worry. Ever since the battle at Skyscraper Ridge, when Shurtong was captured by Qin Feng, she sensed that the connection between them had suddenly been severed. Shi Tong's status in the heavenly lion race was different. She was also known as the saintess of the heavenly lion race. Although Shi Tong was dissatisfied with her and didn't get along well with her, Shi Han still couldn't help but worry when she recalled the scene of Shi Tong being taken away. She didn't dare to believe what would happen to Shi Tong if she fell into the hands of those martial Dao experts. No matter what, she's still my sister. I must save her. Many thoughts flashed through her mind. At this moment, the voice of the tall old man from the heavenly lion race entered her ears. "Young miss, is it possible that Miss Shi Tong has already?" Shi Han denied firmly. "No, that's impossible. Although I can't contact Shi Tong for now, I can sense that she's still alive. I've inquired about it. The person that defeated senior brother that day is called Qin Feng, and he's the champion of the Hidden Dragon rankings that year. Moreover, he's one of the peerless geniuses that rose abruptly in the All-Star meeting this year." Second sister fell into his hands. "I sent people to investigate. Although some women from the heavenly lion race were auctioned in the capital of Stars auction house this year, second sister was not among them. In other words, there is only one possibility. Second sister has been captured by Qin Feng and is being locked up somewhere." Shi Han's beautiful eyes flashed with wisps of wisdom. It had to be said that Shi Han was indeed very intelligent. She had guessed the truth with just a few words. The lion elder nodded. "Then, eldest miss, what are you going to do?" "Capture Qin Feng and force him to hand over second sister." Shi Han's eyes flashed with coldness. For the past few days, Qin Feng's whereabouts have always been mysterious and unpredictable. This is a good opportunity. I've already purchased information on Qin Feng's whereabouts from the Spirit Treasure Sect. He's already arrived at Flying Sky Town and seems to be preparing to head to Cloud Lake City. Spirit Treasure Sect. The Lion Elder's eyes lit up. The Spirit Treasure Sect had a thunderous reputation in certain small circles. Shi Han nodded, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. Those people from the Spirit Treasure Sect are really profiteers. Normally, even if they're searching for the whereabouts of some martial arts experts, they'll only pay 5,000 mid-grade orbs of will. In order to find Qin Feng's whereabouts, they actually charged me 8,000 mid-grade orbs of will. What? 8,000 mid-grade orbs of will? The Lion Elder was dumbfounded. 8,000 mid-grade orbs of will was simply a sky-high price. They even said that Qin Feng is some big shot and has a special identity, so they doubled the price. Shi Han put all the blame on Qin Feng. "Then, young miss, should we immediately rush to Flying Sky Town and capture Qin Feng?" Shi Han shook her head. "There's no rush. No rush." The Lion Elder looked at Shi Han in surprise. "That's right. Qin Feng is abnormal and very difficult to deal with. Even if third uncle is a martial arts expert, I'm afraid you won't be able to easily suppress him." "Then what should we do?" The Lion Elder furrowed his brows. He felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't believe that a mere pulse condensation expert like Qin Feng would be able to escape from his hands. A cold smile appeared on Shi Han's beautiful face when she saw the expression on the Lion Tribe Elder's face. "Third uncle, there's no need to worry. This time, we don't have to do it ourselves. Before coming here, I've already passed the news of Qin Feng being at Flying Sky Town to some of the Xingqian School disciples. Xingqian School isn't completely united. The internal strife within the sect is extremely fierce. You have to know that Qin Feng isn't invincible. According to what I know, there are many people in Xingqian School who want nothing more than to get rid of Qin Feng as soon as possible." The Lion Elder's eyes lit up. Young Mrs. Move is truly a brilliant one. She's letting Xingqian School kill their own people. This way, we only need to relax and be the Oriole. As long as we hide in the dark and wait for the critical moment, we can take advantage of Qin Feng's weakness and capture him in one fell swoop. This move is truly effortless. Young Miss is indeed worthy of being the goddess of wisdom of our heavenly lion tribe. No wonder those old fogies value young Miss so highly. Third uncle is too kind. Sure Han shook her head. Suddenly, the lion elder opened his mouth again. However, young Miss, have you considered one thing? After all, Qin Feng is an inner disciple of Xingqian school. Xingqian school strictly forbids internal strife. Third uncle, don't worry. They won't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Qin Feng is too dazzling. As the saying goes, the tree that grows in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Those geniuses who are jealous of Qin Feng won't let go of this opportunity. Even if they won't do it themselves, they have plenty of methods. We'll just watch and see. Sure Han's beautiful eyes were indifferent as the corners of her red lips curled up into a cold smile. Fei Tian Town, Xinglong Restaurant. We have 3 paths to take. The first path is to take the main road. There's only one official road between Fei Tian Town and Cloud Lake City. After passing through Qinglin Pass, Baigu Pass, Sisui Pass, Deshan Pass and 6 other passes, we'll reach Cloud Lake City. However, I'm afraid this path won't be easy. Baigu Pass, Sisui Pass, and Deshan Pass are the territories of an old enemy of mine. Once we enter their territories, I'm afraid they won't let us pass easily. This old enemy was none other than Yi Ding. Yi Ding was the adopted son of that true disciple. That true disciple's strength was deeply rooted in Xingqian school. He was said to be the true disciple who had the highest chance of inheriting the position of Star Palace's sect master. Qin Feng had inquired about it over the past month. The governors of Baigu Pass, Sisui Pass, and Deshan Pass were all experts under that true disciple's command. Qin Feng believed that if they were to enter, those people definitely wouldn't let go of this opportunity. The group of experts from the Qin family had solemn expressions. They knew that the competition in Xingqian school was extremely cruel. If there was a chance, their opponents definitely wouldn't be merciful. The second path is also not an option. This path is to take the waterway and pass through Tongtian River. Putting aside the fact that there are often water demons causing trouble in Tongtian River, even if we pass through a few docks, we still won't be able to avoid Yi Ding's forces. Qin Feng felt a little helpless when he said this. Only after leaving All Stars College did he realize how great Yi Ding's influence was. Chapter 470. If he was alone, Qin Feng might not necessarily be afraid of Yi Ding. However, bringing so many people with him was just too troublesome. In fact, there was another solution. He could seal all of them in ice and stuff them into the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm like Shurtong. However, the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm was Qin Feng's backyard. Just like a harem, it was a private property. Even if it was sealed in ice, Qin Feng was unwilling to open it to others. Unless the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm could advance to a medium-sized mystic realm one day, Qin Feng could attempt to officially open the mystic realm. Furthermore, to Qin Feng, exposing the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm was extremely dangerous. If he really kept this group of people in the mystic realm and brought them to Cloud Lake City, with the means of Xingqian school's experts, they could easily infer that Qin Feng had the secrets of the mystic realm. This was something that Qin Feng was most unwilling to do. Supremacy, what's the remaining path? Qin Qinghong looked at Qin Feng. The quintet wore heavy expressions. They never expected Qin Feng to have so many enemies behind his glory. The remaining path is to traverse the wilderness. We will walk through the Bone Battlefield, pass through Moonless Forest, and cross Soul-Severing Ridge before reaching Cloud Lake City. Bone Battlefield, Moonless Forest, and Soul-Severing Ridge. The quintet instantly turned pale. It wasn't that the quintet were cowardly, but that these 3 places were just too famous. Ignoring Moonless Forest and Soul-Severing Ridge, just the Bone Battlefield alone made their legs go limp. The Bone Battlefield was a legendary battlefield of gods and fiends from ancient times. It was filled with endless white bones. It was even rumored that in the middle of it, fiend celestials, true spirits, and fey gods had died in battle. There were all sorts of terrifying things in there. Even Xingqian school's experts were helpless against them. They could only leave them be. All right, make your preparations. Qin Feng did not plan on discussing with them. He waved his hand and chased them out. The quintet looked at each other helplessly. Although they were worried, they were helpless against him. After the quintet left, Qin Feng muttered to himself, "Bone battlefield." A smile appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. Preparing to enter the white bone battlefield wasn't something that Qin Feng had decided on the spur of the moment. Rather, it was something that had been carefully considered. 3 days later. Dry Bone Town. This was a medium-sized town. This was the last ancient town on the periphery of the battlefield of bones. Many martial arts experts who went to the battlefield of bones to search for treasures and practice their martial arts would mostly resupply in this ancient town. Although the white bone battlefield was infamous, as long as one did not venture too deep into it, it was still an excellent training ground. In the past, many students of All Stars College would come here to train their martial skills. The 18 people from the Qin clan didn't stay in the Dry Bone Town for long. After replenishing their supplies, they left the town. In front of him was a vast expanse of gray sand. It seemed that after entering the Dry Bone Town, the clouds in the sky had darkened. This gray sand was not ordinary sand, but the gray sand formed after the bones split. Occasionally, a gust of wind would blow, rolling up tornadoes. This seemed to be a despairing gray desert. Walking in the gray sand, the wind grew stronger and stronger. Rustling sounds could be heard as the group's footsteps became heavier. The deeper they went into the battlefield of bones, the colder it became. What the hell is this place? I don't understand why the Sovereign Lord chose to enter the battlefield of bones instead of the continent. Someone in the group muttered softly. Shut up. Don't talk about the Sovereign Lord. Qin Yueme reprimanded softly. Yes, young mistress. The grumbling person quickly shut his mouth. Walking at the front, Qin Feng was naturally aware of the commotion behind him. Lord Ba was dozing off on his shoulder. Apart from Qin Qinghong, Qin Qinyun, and Qin Qinyue, who were over 30 years old, the group was younger. They were all outstanding members of the Mountain River City's Qin clan. They lived like princes and had never experienced such hardship before. If it wasn't for Qin Feng's prestige, they would have already complained. Qin Feng didn't care about these people's complaints. He glanced at Lord Ba, who was on his shoulder. Ever since Lord Ba helped Qin Feng defeat the Yin sovereign, his vitality was greatly damaged. He had been recuperating on the primal chaos tree. This time, not only had his vitality completely recovered, but his strength had also increased. At this moment, Lord Ba was already the size of 2 to 3 ordinary crows. His eyes were bright and spirited, and black wings had begun to grow on his wings. Qin Feng's tyrannical divine sense spread out. Qin Feng frowned. His divine sense, which could originally cover 200 to 300 feet outside, had shrunk by more than half after entering the battlefield of bones. It could only cover 100 feet around him. In Qin Feng's divine sense, the moment he entered the battlefield of bones, there was a faint layer of Yin Qi, baleful Qi, and evil Qi in the air. Qin Feng didn't intend to go deep into the battlefield of bones. Instead, he planned to pass through the border of the battlefield of bones and enter the moonless forest. The route was all in Qin Feng's mind. He would only need to pass through a dozen or so skeleton overlords' territories. The skeleton overlord's strength was only comparable to a sea rebirth realm expert. To Qin Feng, there wasn't any danger. I shouldn't meet the skeleton demon king. Some thoughts flashed in his mind. As he continued forward, he went about 100 miles into the battlefield of bones. Just as Qin Feng walked into a mountain of bones, Lord Ba, who was on his shoulder, suddenly opened his bird eyes and called out, "Croak, croak! Brother Feng, there's trouble!" The surroundings were gray mountains formed by bones. The rocks were rugged, and the bones of unknown ferocious beasts lay on the ground. Rustle, rustle! At this moment, the ear-piercing sound of bones rubbing against each other came from underground. This sound was very concentrated. Qin Feng squinted his eyes and scanned with his divine sense. He could faintly see strands of grayish-black yin qi seeping out from the ground. When the members of the Qin clan saw Qin Feng stop, they took out their weapons. Poochie poochie! A series of eerie and strange noises came from the ground. In front of everyone's eyes, one after another, white bone claws stretched out from the ground and struggled. Then, they saw thin and weak skeletons holding bone sabers and bone swords struggling to get out from the ground. Whoosh whoosh! There were strands of grayish-black yin qi lingering around their bodies. Their tough bones and sharp claws were like steel. At a glance, there were dozens of them. Skeleton demons. This was the lowest level of demons born in the battlefield of bones. These skeleton demons sensed the aura of humans and immediately rushed out from the ground. A group of ordinary skeleton demons. There aren't any skeleton generals. You guys go and deal with them. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the members of the Qin clan behind him. Yes. One by one, they rushed up like arrows. The shadows of swords and sabers resounded on this barren mountain. In the chilly wind, dozens of skeletons climbed out from the ground and rushed towards Qin Feng and the rest in a frenzy. This scene was extremely frightening. Saber light flashed, and a Qin clan cultivator slashed his saber at a skeleton, causing the sound of metal clashing against metal to ring out. That tall skeleton laughed eerily, and its sharp claws slashed out, bombarding the long saber. That cultivator tried to block, but the sharp claws squeezed against the back of the saber, causing a crisp sound to ring out. The sharpness of the sharp claws was actually not inferior to a top-grade weapon forged from tempered iron essence. One claw grabbed the weapon, and the other claw swept out. The speed was extremely fast. The Qin clan warrior of the 10th heavenly layer of the martial path could not dodge in time. He was hit and sent flying back dozens of feet. A 5-claw mark appeared on his chest. In just one exchange, 2 Qin clan disciples were injured by the white bone claws in their panic. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng shook his head. At this moment there was a loud boom, and countless white bones flew up from under his feet. Without a sound, a pitch-black claw appeared behind Qin Feng and instantly pierced into Qin Feng's body like lightning. Chapter 471. The skeleton that launched the sneak attack was very treacherous. It was like a peerless assassin, and the timing of its attack was perfect. Its sharp claws were indescribably fast. In just an instant it reached Qin Feng's body. Poochie! Qin Feng's body was torn apart. This was an illusion. Not good. A low and hoarse voice sounded urgently. This was a short, pitch-black skeleton. It turned around and was about to retreat. However, a voice suddenly came from behind. I can't deny that you hid very well. Your speed is also very fast. A white bone overlord hiding among the ordinary skeletons. If it was an ordinary person, even a C-Revolution expert would be killed by you in one move. However, you met me. This voice wasn't a sound wave. Instead, it was an ice-cold intent. It was like a beautiful moon chilling one's heart. In the next instant, this short, pitch-black skeleton was suddenly sealed in ice. Great Yin reincarnation. After condensing the soul true body that only martial path overlords had, the power of this soul-type soul true body increased greatly. In Qin Feng's hands, it was even more tyrannical than Yu-Ji, the original creator of this soul-type soul true body. Qin Feng's figure appeared. There was a pitch-black whirlpool in his eyes, and a great Yin illusion domain was constructed. Silently, the soul fire in the pitch-black skeleton's eye sockets was extinguished. Qin Feng devoured a shrieking soul in his mind. The great Yin reincarnation erased all the distracting thoughts of this white bone overlord. Only the purest white soul force was left for Qin Feng's soul true body to devour. After devouring this pure white soul force, Qin Feng's soul true body emitted a pure spirit light. It was quite nourishing. So this fellow is a white bone overlord wandering around the white bone battlefield. The reason why it launched a sneak attack was because it sensed the pure life force on my body and became greedy. Their target is actually me, a fragrant bun. Qin Feng frowned. According to the information in the mind of the white bone overlord that launched a sneak attack, many white bone overlords in the surroundings could smell the life force on his body. However, this white bone overlord relied on its innate ability to arrive the fastest. Qin Feng was somewhat annoyed. He had actually overlooked this most important point. When he was in the Earth's secret realm, he had sucked the stone egg crazily to satisfy himself. At this moment, his god body was like a treasure body made of the essence of life. Although he had concealed the rich vitality in his divine body with a secret technique, other martial arts experts might not be able to sense it. But in a place of death like this battlefield of bones, it was like a lighthouse. According to the few memories of this skeleton overlord, it wasn't the only one that sensed Qin Feng's vitality. Almost all the skeleton overlords within a radius of several hundred miles had sensed it. There were even white bone commanders that were above the white bone lord. The white skeleton commander was a terrifying existence comparable to a martial arts overlord. At the thought of being targeted by so many white skeleton commanders, Qin Feng's heart was immediately shrouded in a thick layer of dark cloud. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as he glanced at the numerous skeleton soldiers. He charged out and unleashed a sword light. Everywhere the sword light passed, all the skeleton monsters were shattered into pieces. Many of the Qin clan's martial artists looked at this scene in a daze. This was simply too tyrannical. So many skeleton soldiers were all killed with a single sword. Everyone, increase your speed and pass through the battlefield of bones. The three elders of the Qin clan looked at each other and could hear the seriousness in Qin Feng's voice. The three of them sped forward like arrows. Many of the Qin clan's disciples looked at each other and followed. In the gray sand, numerous figures shuttled back and forth. They were even faster than a cheetah. Sovereign, what is going on? Qin Qinyun looked at Qin Feng with a grave expression. We have encountered a huge problem. I will let Little 8 protect you later. You guys leave first. Don't worry, Little 8's strength is tyrannical. Even an ordinary sea reincarnation realm white bone overlord wouldn't be a match for it. I will meet up with you guys before the moonless forest. Qin Feng instructed Qin Qinyun. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as he stood on the spot. From afar, he could already see a few hundred miles away. Several terrifying Yin auras were sweeping towards them like raging winds. At most, it would take 10 breaths of time for all the white bone overlords to arrive. Qin Qinyun's expression changed slightly. He looked at Qin Feng and nodded. Sovereign, take care. With a burst of speed, the speed of the Qin clan's martial artists increased. They shot forward like lightning and crossed the hill in the blink of an eye. Qin Feng's figure flashed and appeared on the hill. His black robes fluttered in the wind. Kiki, what a dense life essence. My luck is really here. I actually encountered such a blood meal. If I devour you, I will be able to save 500 years of cultivation. An unpleasant and hoarse laughter sounded. A black wind swept over from the horizon. A huge white bone claw enveloped Qin Feng's body. This was a white bone demon at the white bone overlord level. With such a mighty momentum, it was definitely not an ordinary white bone overlord. To think a piece of trash like you wants to eat me. I'll eat you first. Qin Feng's eyes flashed coldly. With a flash, he appeared in the void and slashed out with the Chaos Tidal Annihilation's 9th strike. The massive sword beam arrived first despite being launched later. Bam! 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 The sword beam shattered the white bone claw like lightning. Against the sword beam, the white bone overlord that had extended its claw failed to put up any resistance. Accompanied by a popping sound, The sword beam in Qin Feng's hand instantly shattered the layers of white bones. It suddenly appeared amidst the Yin wind, in front of a panicking white bone overlord. The explosive sword beam streaked across its body like lightning amidst its horrified soul fire. Bam! With a loud boom, the white bone overlord's body was split into two. A soul fire flew out. It was condensed from the white bone demon's core soul. Qin Feng grabbed it and stuffed the ice hole into the chaos heavens. How is this possible? That black cloud fellow seemed to have been killed by that Meridian's condensation realm punk in one strike. In the sky, more than 10 black winds flew over like meteors. When they saw this scene from afar, more than 10 souls that were filled with coldness, venom, and hatred fluctuated violently. Shock. Dread. Black Cloud Overlord was an extremely famous white bone demon in this region. Yet it had been slain in one strike. Even its soul had been taken away. The greedy soul fires flickered violently. Qin Feng stood in his spot with a frown. Countless black winds lingered around him. More than 10 white bone overlords that emitted fluctuations that were in no way inferior to those at the second realm of the Sea of Reincarnation realm. Qin Feng felt like he was in the middle of a storm. It was only a momentary pause. At the next moment, killing intent surged as all the white bone overlords attacked simultaneously. Black winds rustled as pale white claws came crashing down at Qin Feng. Qin Feng's soul felt like it was in the midst of a cold wind. Thick dark clouds pressed down on his heart as his body turned cold. I have to kill these white bone overlords before the commander-level monsters arrive. A sharp cold beam flowed in his eyes. Qin Feng frowned as he held the Dark North Divine Water Sword. The next moment, a vast sword beam burst out and slashed upwards. Chapter 472. Rumble. There seemed to be a muffled sound of thunder in the sky, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking. A sword light that was as vast as a tide cut through the white bone claws. A figure flashed and appeared behind the 3 white bone sovereigns. With a sneer in his eyes, Qin Feng swung his sword. The vast sword light was like thunder as it cut through the 3 white bone sovereigns. Kacha! 6 pieces of broken bones fell to the ground. The terrifying sword light instantly shattered their soul flames. They didn't even have time to react before they were killed by the sword. After killing the 3 white bone sovereigns with one sword, Qin Feng turned around in the air and looked at the other white bone sovereigns. Xiao. Being swept by this gaze, the remaining white bone sovereigns were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Black winds rolled back twice in the sky and only stopped after retreating half a mile. Looking at this scene from afar, the remaining white bone sovereigns felt a chill in their souls. 3 white bone sovereigns were instantly killed by a Meridian's condensation realm martial artist. Qin Feng held the Dark North Godly Water Sword and looked at the distant sky. In his eyes, one after another, pitch-black winds swept over. Rumble. The earth was shaking. In the distance, several white bone sovereigns that were dozens of feet tall walked over. Countless white bone soldiers rushed over like a tide. Standing on the hill and looking at the terrifying aura in the distance, Qin Feng's aura began to rise. The more white bone sovereigns that rushed over, the more ants could bite an elephant to death. Qin Feng needed to intimidate this group of greedy white bone sovereigns. Ever since he cultivated the soul true body, Qin Feng's aura was equivalent to that of a quasi-martial overlord. On the hill, a terrifying aura suddenly began to rise. Originally, as more and more white bone sovereigns arrived, the white bone sovereigns that were ready to make a move suddenly stopped after sensing this aura. Pairs of ghostly eyes looked at the black-clothed young man on the hill in shock. In the senses of the white bone sovereigns, the aura that erupted from Qin Feng's body was far beyond the Sea Reincarnation realm. Wondrous Void Realm. The first realm of the Sea of Reincarnation, the Spirit Sea Realm. The second level of the Sea of Reincarnation, the Spatial Realm. The third stage of the Sea of Reincarnation, Heaven Realm. In the blink of an eye, He reached the pinnacle of the Empyrean realm, and a trace of the aura of a martial arts overlord emerged. Around the hill, terrifying sounds of waves crashing into each other could be heard in the void. Even the void was trembling violently. Soon, more than 30 skeleton overlords had gathered in the sky. Most of the skeleton overlords within 5,000 kilometers had rushed over. The expressions of the bone overlords changed. Their greed was mixed with a hint of fear. Whoosh! Dozens of black gusts of wind lingered in front of the hill for dozens of miles. They did not move forward, but some of them were unwilling to retreat. At this moment, Qin Feng raised his head and stretched out a hand. A pure white flame appeared on his palm and floated in the void. The pure white light dispelled the darkness that shrouded the white bone battlefield all year round. As soon as this light appeared, many white skeletons, and even the white skeleton overlord, felt a kind of fear that made their souls scatter. The fire of hope was a heaven and earth divine flame born from the wishes of heaven and earth. It was the nemesis of creatures like the bone demon that were born from death. Whoever moves forward will die. A faint voice came from the hill. Although the black-clothed youth was not very tall and could even be said to be thin, no white skeleton overlord dared to question his tone. At this moment, a black chilly wind that was several feet thick swept over from the sky. A strange crimson skeleton appeared in the void. As soon as this skeleton appeared, many white skeleton overlords' soul flames fluctuated violently. Gusts of chilly wind spread out and made a path in the middle. Qin Feng frowned. As soon as this strange skeleton with a strange crimson light appeared, he felt a kind of restlessness and uneasiness from the depths of his soul. In his mind, the opponent's aura had reached the peak of the sea reincarnation realm and was about to become a martial arts overlord. Lord Bloodbone. The Bone Lords flinched and kept their distance from the blood-red skeleton. A bunch of trash. The crimson soul flames of this strange crimson skeleton flickered. The next moment they fell on Qin Feng. The greed and desire in the skeleton's eyes were almost tangible. What a rich life force! Every inch of your flesh is full of delicious taste. This king has never seen such delicious food. A sharp and excited voice resounded in the sky. Qin Feng felt 2 soul flames fall on his body. He was like a crazy hungry wolf. Blood-red bones. This guy is the blood skeleton that everyone in the dry bone town has been talking about. Legend has it that this guy is the cruelest and likes to suck the blood essence of martial experts. He also cultivates a strange evil death technique that is infamous for its ferocity and abnormally powerful. The martial arts experts that died in its hands were all at the sea reincarnation realm. Today I will meet it. Thinking to himself, Qin Feng held the North Underworld Godly Water Sword with one hand. Brat, you're mine now. The blood skeleton screamed excitedly. Countless black smoke like spiritual snakes broke through the sky and shrouded Qin Feng. Terrifying screams could be heard coming from the black smoke as countless skeletons emerged from the black smoke. This was a grand magic of the death attribute. The screaming black skeletons were called skeleton demons. Once bitten, not only would one's flesh and blood essence be sucked away, but even one's soul would be sucked away. This thing was very difficult to deal with. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a sneer. He leaped up and appeared in the void after a few flashes. With a slash of his sword, the sword cut through the void for hundreds of feet. Crackle! 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 The sword light cut through the numerous skeletons like lightning. Countless skeletons exploded. In the blink of an eye, the screaming skeletons in the sky were swept away like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaf. In the distance, the white skeleton overlords were horrified when they saw this scene. This was the signature grand magic of the blood skeleton overlord. Over the years, many white skeleton overlords had been killed by this grand magic. Qin Feng sneered as he looked at the blood-red skeleton and said, "Old man, if that's all you've got, then your soul will be mine today." Little brat, don't be too complacent. Do you think my skeleton demons are so simple? The crimson soul fire in his blood-red eyes smiled sinisterly. In the midst of his strange laughter, countless black smoke rose from his blood-red claws. Visible to the naked eye, many of the skeleton demons that had been smashed by Qin Feng's sword were restored in the midst of their strange laughter. Moreover, there were more of them. In the void, there seemed to be several long rivers of skeletons heading toward Qin Feng to envelop him. You can still be resurrected. You really have some ability. However, you are unlucky to have met me. Qin Feng's body flew backward like a cannonball. The long rivers of skeletons chased after him like spiritual snakes. Rumble! Qin Feng's descent suddenly took a 90-degree turn. With a loud bang, the skeleton demons that were chasing after Qin Feng smashed into the ground. Countless skeleton demons scattered like a flood. But in an instant they soared into the sky and locked onto Qin Feng, who was flying close to the ground. Seeing this, the blood skeleton soul fire shot out a trace of cruel complacency. Boy, obediently offer your flesh and blood. If so, I can guarantee that when I eat you, I will not let you suffer. As he spoke, blood bone threw his head back and let out a sharp screech. The countless skeletons chasing after him suddenly transforming into a gigantic skull that opened its mouth and lunged towards Qin Feng. It was like a black hole, and a terrifying suction force was born. Qin Feng felt a huge suction force suddenly appear behind him. In an instant, his body could not help but slide backward. Want to swallow me? Fine, I will let you swallow me. Flying in midair, Qin Feng's face revealed a trace of strangeness. The grand magic of chaotic fire was condensed. A fireball quietly appeared between his palms. At the same time, his body suddenly turned. Chapter 473. Suddenly, the fireball in Qin Feng's hand fell into the huge skull like a meteor. Poochie! In the blink of an eye, it was as if a spark had ignited the haystack. The entire skull was bathed in a pure white flame. Crackle! With the sound of burning flames, in just a dozen breaths, the river-like skeleton demons were burned to ashes. After the flame finished burning, Qin Feng moved his spirit sense, and a long river of flame fell into his palm, like a small pure white sun. Grasping this pure white sun, a cool and refreshing energy flowed into the depths of his soul. To Qin Feng's surprise, his soul true body began to swell. In the blink of an eye, his soul true body had grown by nearly a third. What's going on? Qin Feng was pleasantly surprised. Could it be that the fire of hope is able to refine the souls of these skeletal demons and feed it back to itself? Qin Feng's eyes lit up. He felt that he had vaguely guessed the truth. The fire of hope was a divine fire of heaven and earth. Perhaps he had always underestimated this kind of divine fire. Qin Feng's eyes turned red as he stared at the many skeleton overlords in the sky. If that was the case, these skeleton overlords were all top-notch tonics. He burned Blood Bone Monarch's famous theurgy? In the distance, the many bone overlords shuddered as they watched this scene. Blood Bone King looked furious. You dare to break this king's divine ability? You're courting death. With a roar, a layer of blood-red flame appeared around Blood Bone King's body. A blood-red shadow shuttled back and forth, and a bone-chilling wind shrouded Qin Feng. In the blink of an eye, a blood-red flaming claw appeared above Qin Feng's head. Azura blood flame, you actually managed to cultivate such a vicious spiritual fire. The Azura blood flame was a type of top-grade spiritual fire. It was hidden in the depths of the underground blood river and was condensed from the most vicious blood poison. It could absorb blood energy to grow. Once a person's flesh was tainted by a trace of it, they would not rest until they were dead. However, I'm the master when it comes to playing with fire. Qin Feng sneered, not bothering to dodge. The flame of hope wrapped around his fist as he punched the claw above his head. How dare you compete with the skeleton clan? You're courting death. Blood Bone King sneered. Although the skeleton race was only left with bones, they were extremely powerful. Blood Bone King, in particular, was a foreign race expert from the ancient times called the Dragonesque Elephant Clan. They claimed to have the power of the ancient Dragonesque elephant. In addition, he had comprehended a true martial-level cultivation method called the 9 revolving white bones mystic technique under the white bone stele in the center of the white bone battlefield. His bones were even tougher than some ancient savage beasts. A trace of brutality and excitement flashed through its blood-red eyes. It was as if it could see the black-clothed brat's stomach being ripped open and his heart being crushed. Crack! A loud sound rang out. With the crisp sound of bones breaking, Blood Bone King stared blankly at his broken claw with an incredulous look in its eyes. One of Blood Bone King's claws was broken by the black tortoise force. The pure white flame of hope spread along the broken bone and enveloped Blood Bone King in the blink of an eye. Blood Bone King's face changed. Ignoring the shock in his heart, he quickly mobilized the Azura blood flame to resist the flame of hope that spread toward his soul. In Blood Bone King's eyes, his Azura blood flame was the top flame, so it should be easy for it to devour the pure white flame. However, Blood Bone King soon panicked. The overbearing power of the flame of hope was beyond his imagination. In order to practice the 9 revolving white bones mystic technique, the Yin Qi, Evil Qi, and Blood Qi that he had absorbed for hundreds of years on the battlefield were instantly purified by the flame of hope. Even his trump card, the Azura blood flame, was suppressed, disintegrated, and purified by the flame of hope. Blood Bone King was completely flustered. His soul flame struggled violently, wanting to give up his well-tempered body. However, the flame of hope entangled his soul like a spirit. After 10 breaths, under the astonished gaze of many skeleton lords, the previously arrogant Blood Bone King turned into a pile of ashes. A pure white flame flew onto Qin Feng's palm. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes, and wisps of extremely pure soul power were fed back to his soul true body. In 2 breaths, his soul true body grew another inch taller. It had grown from 7 inches to 8 inches. He spread out his divine thought. Originally, he could only scan 100 feet around him. Now, he could easily scan a range of 200 to 300 feet. Qin Feng's eyes narrowed, and his gaze fell on the 30 or so skeleton overlords around him. These people were no longer trouble, they were simply living elixirs. Qin Feng's figure floated up inch by inch from the top of the hill. He struck out a series of hand seals with his palms, and wisps of the flame of hope emerged from Qin Feng's body. Thousands upon thousands of fireballs formed from the flames of hope appeared behind Qin Feng. As his 10 fingers moved, the fireballs began to change shape, elongate, and thinner, forming thousands upon thousands of flames of hope. Not good, run! It's that terrifying flame. Run! Seeing this, many skeleton lords' faces changed instantly. Even the Blood Bone King, one of the best among them, could not resist this flame. How could they resist it? Swoosh! One after another, the black winds rolled back. They no longer had the flames that they had when they first arrived. It was as if their buttocks were on fire. Rumble! Dozens of black gusts of wind flew toward the sky with long tails. At this moment, Qin Feng assumed the posture of drawing a bow, using his body as the bow and the fire of hope as the arrow. Look to the northwest. Shoot the heavenly wolf. 1,000 layers 100 splitting arrow art. Fire of hope go. The light in his eyes pierced through the void. Buzz, 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 buzz. Tens of thousands of pure white arrows formed by the fire of hope streaked across the void, like thousands of meteors cutting through the dark bone battlefield. Puff, puff. With a few miserable cries, the 5 skeleton lords who were too slow to escape turned into pure white fireballs on the spot. They screamed and fell to the ground. At the same time, the arrows formed by the fire of hope fell on the bone battlefield. The skeleton demons, who were surging toward Qin Feng like ants, suddenly exploded like flowers. A single spark could start a prairie fire. Attracted by the extremely rich life essence on Qin Feng's body, more than 10,000 skeleton soldiers rushed over. They were all densely packed in the sea of fire. This scene was extremely spectacular. At this time, on the other side of the hillside, many warriors who were training on the bone battlefield were alarmed and looked at this scene in shock. Among them, the girl in white, Shirhan, and her third uncle were on the hillside. For a moment, both of them looked horrified. Crackle! In Qin Feng's eyes, a radius of hundreds of miles suddenly became a pure white sea of fire. The fire of hope was extremely overbearing. Some of the skeleton soldiers could not withstand the heat and were instantly turned to ashes. Wherever the pure white flames passed, the white bone soldiers would turn into ashes like weed. A smile appeared on Qin Feng's face. With so many skeleton demons being refined by the fire of hope, this would be an enormous amount of soul energy. However, in the next moment, his expression suddenly changed. In his eyes, a white stream of light streaked across the sea of fire and arrived in front of him in an instant. It was an arrow, a pure white bone arrow. Its speed was so fast that even the void was pierced through. For a moment, Qin Feng felt as if the world had lost its color. Qin Feng wanted to dodge, but he found that he could do nothing. Poochie! With a sharp pain in his chest, Qin Feng lowered his head. A trace of horror flashed in his eyes as he saw a terrifying hole appear in his chest. The flesh and blood around this hole withered like dead grass. It was extremely terrifying. At the same time, a beautiful figure in black coldly walked out of the void tens of thousands of feet away. She held a fierce and strange bone bow in her hand. Chapter 474. Qin Feng's expression was ugly. This was not because he was only seriously injured. It was because he recognized this woman who had suddenly appeared. Madame of Bones. This was a terrifying existence in the depths of the bone battlefield. This was a martial arts almighty who had passed the first chaos tribulation or above. She was wearing a soft silk robe of pure black. Her pitch black, thick, and silk-like hair draped over her shoulders. She was like a fairy slowly walking out from the deep night sky, giving people endless space for imagination. Qin Feng had seen Ji Huang'er before. Yu Ji was already a peerless beauty, but this woman in front of him not only did not seem inferior, but her moving charm was even better. There was a bit of a young girl's mischievousness between her brows, and there was also a charm that a young girl could not reach. Qin Feng, this madam has been waiting for you here for a long time. The Madam of Bones walked down from the void with light step. Qin Feng looked at the big hole in his chest and sighed softly. To be able to trouble such a peerless beauty like Madam to wait for me, Qin Feng is really lucky. He secretly used the 8 Desolation immortal mysterious art, and this terrifying hole silently healed. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the bone bow in the Madam of Bones' hand. This was a bowstring made of bones. With bones as the bow and the evil energy of heaven and earth as the string, there was a terrifying blood-red skull in the center of the bowstring. Thinking about it, this is the famous heartbreak bow, the sorrowful arrow. Rumor has it that Madam once used this bow to kill a reincarnation sovereign. Qin Feng is just a Meridian's condensation realm martial artist. How can he be lucky enough to taste this arrow? I am really ashamed. The corner of his mouth twitched and he knelt on one knee. At this time, there was endless energy and resentment in the depths of Qin Feng's soul, and illusions were everywhere. To be able to say this, Qin Feng had already used up all his strength. I didn't expect that. I don't know who wants me dead so much that they actually invited a terrifying existence like the Madam of Bones. Now that I have fallen into her hands, it will be difficult to escape. Inwardly furious, Qin Feng smiled bitterly. Qin Feng might have tried to resist if he had encountered an ordinary martial arts powerhouse, but Madam of Bones was no small matter. She had probably gone through more than one chaos tribulation. This kind of martial arts powerhouse was also known as a saint-level powerhouse. The current Qin Feng was no match for Madame of Bones. However, it's impossible for her to easily kill me. If I'm forced into a corner, I'll self-destruct the chaos heavens and perish with her. This guy is really something. Although he has fallen into my hands, his face has not changed at all. His temperament is really surprising. No wonder Yi Ding is so afraid of him and is willing to pay the price of the first part of the Life and Death Mysterious Sutra for me to help him. What a pity! It's really a pity to use such a good seedling as a medicinal primer. As she secretly felt pity for Qin Feng, Madame of Bones moved her slender waist and instantly appeared in front of Qin Feng. She grabbed Qin Feng with her slender hand. Qin Feng knew how powerful the woman was from that claw. It was as though the void around him had been completely sealed. It was a seal that even the Universe Book or the Chaos Tree could not easily undo. From the looks of it, this Madame of Bones has gone through at least 2 chaos tribulations to have such a level of spatial control. Qin Feng's eyes darted around as he allowed Madame of Bones to grab him. It did not matter if he self-destructed earlier or later. Perhaps he could find an opportunity to escape from the old demoness. Countless flames of hope were instantly summoned back by Qin Feng. They transformed into a white flame that surged out of Qin Feng's body. A surging soul force surged into the depths of his soul as the grievous arrow's power was instantly extinguished. Madame of Bones glanced at Qin Feng with a faint smile on her beautiful face and allowed Qin Feng to retrieve the flames of hope. With a flash, the two of them silently disappeared into the void. An hour later, 2 silhouettes landed on the hill where Qin Feng and Madame of Bones were a few hours ago. That woman just now seemed to be. Sure Han had a pensive look in her eyes. It's Madame of Bones. A trace of fear flashed through Third Uncle's eyes. Just now, when Madame of Bones glanced at him from afar, that kind of terror seemed to penetrate deep into his soul, causing him to involuntarily tremble. It's really hard to imagine. That person has always lived in the depths of the Bone Battlefield, the Red Beauty Cave. Why would she appear in the periphery of the Bone Battlefield? It should be someone from Xingqian School. As far as I know, the upper echelons of Xingqian School have always been related to the sovereigns of the Bone Battlefield. Now it seems like that is indeed the case. Sure Han's beautiful eyes flickered with a trace of brilliance. Third Uncle's expression changed. Rumor has it that this Bone Battlefield was built by a sovereign of Xingqian School after he fell and was reborn, using the power of life and death to prove his Tao as a demon god. There are even rumors that this Bone Battlefield is that person's divine kingdom. Could it be true? Third Uncle hesitated for a moment, then looked at Sure Han and said, "Eldest Miss, if Qin Feng dies in the hands of Madame of Bones, then what should we do?" Sure Han was silent for a moment, then said, "Let's wait." She glanced at the Lion Tribe elder and said, "Wait for the result. No matter what, second sister and I were born from the same mother. If possible, I will not let go of any hope of rescuing her." Third Uncle nodded repeatedly. "Then where should we go?" Sure Han's eyes flashed. "Moonless Forest." Qin Feng only felt a wave of dizziness. A moment later, his figure appeared in a terrifying ancient cave full of piles of bones. There were so many terrifying piles of bones, but the style was like a woman's boudoir. The style was pink, and Qin Feng thought that he had walked into a young girl's boudoir. Glancing around, Qin Feng said, "Could it be that Madame lives in a place like this?" Madame of Bones' expression was indifferent. Her beautiful eyes glanced at Qin Feng, and a touch of blood appeared. Qin Feng intuitively felt a mountain of corpses and a sea of bones surging in his mind. What a terrifying killing intent! What a fierce old demon! Qin Feng's face was slightly pale. This was an act. How could this kind of situation scare Qin Feng? "Qin Feng, behave. I brought you here not because I can't kill you, but now is not the time to kill you. Don't make things difficult for me. The cold voice was like a cold wind blowing into Qin Feng's heart. Madame of Bone's tone was cold. Qin Feng had to admit that this woman was simply charming to the bone. Even when she was angry, she still had a soul-stirring charm. Coupled with her high status, it was enough to arouse the desire of any man in the world to conquer her. Madam. At this moment, two soft and pleasant voices sounded. Listening to this voice, it made people curious about the appearance of these two women. Qin Feng was the same, but in the next moment, Qin Feng regretted it. Two skeletons came out from the surrounding cave. Two tall skeletons with big arms and round waists, and heads like wheat. With just a glance, Qin Feng saw the realm of these two skeletons. They were actually two top-level skeleton overlords, only half a step away from the skeleton commanding army realm. You two serve this distinguished guest. A cold voice sounded, and the eyes of the two big skeletons lit up. Their soul fire emitted a kind of unconcealable fluctuation of excitement. It was two big perverts eyeing a beautiful girl. Are they going to rape her? This baby was scared to death. This was 2F** King scary. With a bitter face, Qin Feng said to the beauty in black seriously, Madam, is there anything more beautiful in your cave? Chapter 475. Madame of White Bones glanced at him indifferently, her beautiful face filled with coldness. She did not put Qin Feng in her heart. Her eyes flashed, and two white bone chains formed from white bones drilled out from the depths of the cave. Qin Feng frowned and instinctively wanted to dodge, but in the next moment, his face changed slightly, and his body could not move. The two white bone chains pierced through Qin Feng's shoulders, and with a groan, Qin Feng felt his entire shoulder go numb. Qin Feng revolved the star true power in his body, wanting to break the white bone chains. Seeing this, the two white skeletons on the side laughed charmingly. Kid, don't waste your time. This is the white bone origin locking chain, forged from the bones of our madam after the fall of the immemorial true spirit. If it is our madam's secret technique, even if it pierced through the bones of an almighty martial artist, he or she would not be able to escape. You better give up. Qin Feng's brows twitched. Indeed, after being pierced through by the white bone chains, the star true power in his body seemed to have completely lost connection. Even his soul power was completely trapped. His entire cultivation base had been sealed. Qin Feng's heart was filled with dark clouds. Qin Feng's expression did not change, and he was thinking of a way to escape. At this moment, a sharp pain came from his shoulder, and the two white bone chains dragged Qin Feng into the depths of the Red Beauty Cave. Qin Feng only felt dizzy, and his ears could only hear the sound of the white bone chains rubbing against the ground. After an unknown period of time, he seemed to have been dragged into a bottomless pit. After a while, Qin Feng opened his eyes, squinting slightly. The light from the dome shone down, and it was somewhat dazzling. Hua hua. Although his cultivation had been temporarily sealed, Qin Feng still had the keen eyesight and hearing of a martial artist. This was an ancient cave, eerie, but there was a strange fragrance. This is crisp bone fragrance. Qin Feng frowned. Just by smelling this fragrance, his limbs went soft, and even his soul became soft, unable to muster any strength. This was a precious 6th-grade spirit herb. It was a type of spirit herb. Even if a martial arts expert were to smell this fragrance for the first time, they would also be affected. If they were to bathe in this fragrance for many years, their martial will would be completely worn down, and they would become a puppet of this fragrance. It's really strange. Logically speaking, this 6th-grade spirit medicine is extremely precious. Looking at the rich fragrance in this cave, it seems that this cave is bathed in this kind of crisp bone incense all year round. How could this Madame of Bones have so much crisp bone incense? Could it be that this woman is an extremely high-grade alchemist? As he pondered, Qin Feng scanned the surroundings. The situation in the ancient cave appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. Inside the ancient cave, white bones were piled up like firewood. In the center was a deep pool that emitted a chilling aura. Just a glance was enough to freeze Qin Feng's soul. Around the ancient pool, white bone chains pierced through the skeletons that exuded a terrifying aura. The owners of these skeletons had already lost their vitality. Even though he had lost his spiritual sense, Qin Feng could tell at a glance that the owners of these skeletons were at least martial arts giants when they were alive. It was hard to imagine that so many martial arts giants, including the White Bones commander, had died here. A trace of gloominess appeared between his brows. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the white bone chains on his body again. He circulated his star true force again, but there was still no response. Again and again, he tried to awaken his star true force, but it was like a stone sinking into the sea. After a while, Qin Feng gave up on this attempt. He changed his target and tried to circulate his soul force. This time there was some response. However, when his soul force moved, the white bone chains immediately released a strange force that trapped his spiritual altar. With Qin Feng's current soul force, it was impossible for him to rush out of the spiritual altar. However, this was only a portion of Qin Feng's soul force. This was the sole true body that he had cultivated in this life. If he added the remaining soul force from his previous life, at this moment, Qin Feng's ears twitched, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Kacha kacha! At the entrance of the soft bone cave, the unique sound of bones rubbing against each other could be heard. Two abnormally tall skeletons appeared at the entrance of the cave. These two skeletons were none other than the two White Bones lords that were sent by the Madam of Bones to serve Qin Feng. Seeing Qin Feng being hung up by the white bone chains, the two skeletons pounced over like wolves and tigers. "Young master, sorry for making you wait. We sisters are here to serve you." The voice was delicate. If not for the two terrifying skeletons, no one would have thought that the owner of the voice was so terrifying. Qin Feng groaned and turned his face away. "Oh, this young master is still shy." "Young master, don't be shy. Don't worry, we sisters will be gentler to you." The two White Bones demons were bashful. Their bodies were tall and sturdy, and their posture was nauseating. Qin Feng's expression was calm. The White Bones demon scratched its head coquettishly for a moment. Seeing that Qin Feng had no reaction, the two White Bones demons looked at each other and smiled sinisterly. One of the White Bones demons strode forward and hooked its two sharp claws onto Qin Feng's shoulders. Its skull rubbed directly in front of Qin Feng. An invisible suction force was born. Qin Feng felt that wisps of life force were unknowingly flowing out of his body, like a black hole being sucked away. Qin Feng's expression turned cold. He tried to stop it, but his cultivation was sealed, and he could not stop his life force from flowing out. At the same time, the White Bones demon's body was suffused with an emerald luster. Its soul fire was even more vigorous. Its aura was growing. There was a feeling that it was about to break through and become a White Bones commander. On the side, the other White Bones demon's eyes were shining, eager to try. "So the White Bones demon didn't kill me because she wanted to use me as a blood cow to feed her subordinates." The killing intent in Qin Feng's eyes was difficult to restrain. The feeling of having one's life force uncontrollably being sucked away was definitely not a good feeling. "No, I have to think of a way to stop it." Qin Feng's expression was gloomy as he cast his gaze on the only thing that could move his soul power. Hum, hum, hum. Deep in his mind, a black beam of light appeared. It was the Abyss Fiend diagram, which was also where the final soul essence of Qin Feng's previous life resided. The moment the Abyss Fiend diagram appeared, it fused with his soul true body. In the middle of the soul platform, his soul true body opened its eyes as a layer of black light erupted around it. It vaguely resembled the Abyss Fiend diagram as it emitted an invisible force. Kacha, kacha. Deep in his mind, a white bone chain around the soul platform that was locked down began to pry open bit by bit. Although the white bone chain was an extremely difficult treasure to deal with, Qin Feng's Abyss Fiend diagram had an extraordinary background as well. Especially when the Abyss Fiend diagram fused with the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm, it was extremely powerful. Qin Feng originally planned on shattering the white bone chain in one go, but his eyes darted around the next moment as he immediately had an idea. Circulating the primordial Heart Fiend Sutra, his soul true body produced a layer of black gas as mental demons were created. Following the white bones demon that was slumped over and sucking away its life force, the Sky Fiends silently infiltrated the white bones demon's mind. They constantly used the white bones demon's negative emotions to grow and corrode the white bones demon's mind. They fused with the white bones demon and completely refined their soul fires. In an instant, the white bones demon became one of his own. It will erupt once on the 16th or 17th of October. It will be guaranteed at least 20 chapters. Strive for 30 chapters. Chapter 476. This process was silent. The white bone demon was born from the aura of death, and was naturally filled with negative emotions. When these heavenly demons merged, it was as if their minds were fused. Qin Feng originally wanted to get rid of this annoying white bone demon with a thought, but he suddenly changed his mind. After a while, this white bone demon seemed to be saturated, and its soul fire was filled with an inexplicable fluctuation, as if it was about to transform. This white bone demon narrowed its eyes and released its sharp claws reluctantly. "It's my turn." The other white bone demon couldn't wait to rush up. Qin Feng did the same, and soon this white bone demon was also invaded by the demons and controlled its mind. The two white bone demons absorbed a part of the vitality, and their life fire transformed from white to red. It seemed that they were about to advance. Narrowing their eyes, the two white bone demons absorbed some vitality, and it was light as a feather, as if they were drunk. Kacha, kacha, a series of footsteps. After a while, the two white bone demons left contentedly. Qin Feng's face was gloomy, and he wanted to slap these two white bone demons to death several times. Taking a deep breath, Qin Feng closed his eyes and immersed his mind. According to the guidance of the heart demon, Qin Feng saw the two white bone demons again. After the two white bone demons' strength improved greatly, they swayed and turned into a black wind, passing through many caves, and stopped in an exquisitely decorated cave. With the vision of the two white bone demons, Qin Feng saw clearly that there were pavilions everywhere, flowery paths, gurgling streams, and peach trees on the side. It was impossible to tell that this was a white bone demon's cave. Teams of skeleton soldiers holding bone spears, bone sabers, and bone swords were patrolling. These skeleton soldiers were not weak, and the weakest was a white bone general. Many of them were at the white bone overlord level. White Jade General Bailan. The two white bone demons had a high status, and the other white bone demons were very respectful and flattering when they saw them. With the nature of the two white bone demons, they were not prepared to pay attention to these lackeys. However, with a thought from Qin Feng, the two white bone demons immediately changed their minds. One of the skeletal demons named White Jade nodded. She stepped forward and patted the leading skeletal demon, who was at the level of a skeletal lord, and smiled. "Do your best. Madam will not treat you unfairly." "Yes, General Baiyu." The leading white bone overlord was flattered. It did not notice that wisps of inner demon black chi were seeping into Baiyu's soul through her shoulder, through her jade-like skeletal hand. Heart demons rushed into the depths of the bone lord level bone demon's soul and merged with the negative emotions in her body, corroding her mind and merging into her soul. After the group of skeletons walked past, even Baiyu came to her senses. What happened just now? Why would this general greet those lowly skeleton soldiers? I don't know. It's so weird. Another skeleton demon called Bailan looked at Baiyu in surprise. The two bone demons shook their heads strangely. In the depths of the two bone demons' souls, Qin Feng's demon doppelganger appeared, absorbing the dark emotions in the two bone demons' hearts. The demon doppelganger's power was rapidly growing. In just a moment it had reached the meridian condensing realm. If it was given some more time, it would easily surpass the cultivation of the two bone demons. The two bone demons passed through many pavilions. The territory of the Madam of Bones was vast, and she had many soldiers and generals. She was truly powerful. Among them, there were many bone demons whose cultivation was not inferior to white jade and Bailan. In some pavilions, Qin Feng's demonic consciousness sensed the fear of the two demons. This was the residence of some martial overlord-level bone demons in the cave. This Madam of Bones is so powerful. Even if she doesn't attack, I won't be able to escape from this beauty cave easily. It seems that if I want to leave, I will have to mess up this beauty cave. Qin Feng's heart was heavy. This Madam of Bones was indeed one of the overlords of the bone battlefield. Not long after, the two bone demons arrived in front of a cave residence filled with pink fog. There were two pretty girls guarding the cave residence. Qin Feng quickly hid his demonic consciousness deeply. These two bone demons had already cultivated a physical body and were reincarnated from the dead. The two girls in front of him were definitely martial overlords with many years of experience. Lord Bai Huan, Lord Bai Lu. The two bone demons bowed respectfully. The two girls' expressions were cold. They turned around and their gazes fell on the two bone demons, as if they could see the deepest part of their souls. Qin Feng hid it even more tightly. White Jade, Bailan, the two of you are not bad. After absorbing that brat's rich life force, your bodies are filled with vitality. There are already signs of reincarnation. As long as you cultivate diligently, you will be able to advance to commander level soon. One of the girls, Bai Huan, pointed out. However, although you have absorbed his life force and have an opportunity, it is still very difficult to advance to commander level. You still need to work hard. If you can condense the white bone demon god's heart before you advance, it will be in the bag. Don't be greedy to advance. You must know that the foundation is the king. Our bone demon clan reincarnated from the dead. We first died and then came back to life. It is very rare to be able to reach this step. I hope you can succeed. Yes, thank you for your guidance, Commander Bai Huan. The two skeletal demons were very respectful. Qin Feng nodded to himself as he listened. The stronger one's foundation was, the wider one's future path would be. However, he had never heard of the white bone demon god's heart. However, he quickly captured everything he wanted to know from the fluctuating emotions of the two bone demons. The white bone demon god's heart was actually the heart of life and death. As long as these bone demons could condense the heart of life and death, they could truly be reincarnated from the dead. Life and death were one, and they could cultivate the immortal and indestructible Xianming true body. If they did not condense the white bone demon god's heart, even if they had a layer of flesh and blood, they could only be considered as a painted skin and not a real living person. Qin Feng was a little surprised. Generally speaking, creatures like the bone demons that were born from death should walk the path of unipolar heaven. Comprehending the path of death was the best choice. This Madam of Bones actually went against the norm. She was reincarnated from the dead and comprehended the path of life. However, combined with the layout of the Madam of Bones cave, Qin Feng did not find it strange. Generally speaking, women like to be beautiful. At this moment, the other young woman called Bai Lu spoke as well. If the two of you can condense the bone demon world, the madam will definitely not be stingy with the rewards. She might even bestow a deity position and condense the death divine throne. Yes. The two bone demons' emotions fluctuated violently. Deity position? At this moment, Qin Feng could not help but ask. There was nothing he could do. This deity position was very important. What was a deity position? It was a strange object condensed from the laws of heaven and earth. Combining with this object was like ascending to the heavens in a single step, becoming a demon god, controlling the Tao of heaven and earth, and dominating all living things. It shouldn't be. This golden era has just begun. According to the records, the deity position will only appear when the golden era is at its peak. Could it be a deity position left behind from the previous era? In the depths of the prison, Qin Feng's eyes lit up. It will erupt on the 16th or 17th of October. It will be guaranteed at least on the 20th. It will erupt all at once on the 30th. Chapter 477. However, in an instant, Qin Feng was disappointed. From the intense emotional fluctuations of the two demons, Qin Feng stole a part of the secret. It turned out that this white ring, the deity position that Bai Lu mentioned, was only a trace of authority condensed from the Madame of Bones' secret realm. The secret realm condensed by the Madame of Bones was called the White Bone Hell. However, this White Bone Hell was extraordinary. It had already gone through several great tribulations. In this cave of beautiful bones, the secret realm condensed by all the bone overlords that advanced to commander-level monsters would automatically be integrated into the White Bone Hell. This so-called deity position was a trace of authority split from the White Bone Hell. This could only be considered a fake deity position. After fusing with this deity position, one would be able to obtain the support of the secret realm and some benefits, but one's life would also fall into the hands of others. Qin Feng didn't care about this so-called deity position at all. At the bottom of the prison, Qin Feng closed his eyes. After a round of encouragement, the two demons walked into the cave in high spirits. The cave was spacious, with pavilions, halls, and palaces. Rumble! Qin Feng heard the thunderous sound of a waterfall. There was actually a waterfall falling from the sky in this cave abode, falling from the cliff. Around this pavilion, ancient trees, old vines, and strange flowers and herbs were everywhere. After passing through the waterfall area, they arrived at a secluded palace. There were many beautiful young women in white sitting in meditation and cultivating. Hearing the movement, pairs of cold eyes opened. They were all powerful existences who had comprehended the overlord realm or above. They were all old demons. Qin Feng felt a chill in his heart. So it's Bai Yu, Bai Lan. The two of you have perfected your cultivation. Passing by the old demons and seniors, Bai Yu and Bai Lan, the two demons bowed respectfully. Bai Yu, Bai Lan, go in. Madam has been waiting for you for a long time. A plump, beautiful woman in white landed on the ground with several maidservants. She was dressed in a pure silk dress and was about 30 years old. Her figure was tall and beautiful, and she was extremely beautiful and charming. That mature and charming charm made Qin Feng's heart burn slightly. Perhaps it was because of his devil body, all kinds of thoughts swelled up in his head. Qin Feng actually had a feeling of wanting to get this woman immediately. Soon, Qin Feng suppressed this feeling. She was an expert who had survived at least one chaos tribulation. Aunt Yu Qi. The two demons hurriedly bowed. The white-clothed woman's gaze fell on Bai Yu and Bai Lan. The two of you are not bad. Your soul foundation has been completely stabilized, and the aura of death on your body has completely dissipated. That human brat's life essence is extremely pure. Such a person can be said to be 1 in 10,000. Even I am envious of such an opportunity. Yu Qi knew that these two skeleton demons had excellent aptitude. They were the most promising geniuses among the lords of the Cave of White Bones and Beauty to become White Bones commanders. It was also because of this that her madam had personally appointed them to absorb the qi of White Bones. Go in, don't let madam wait for too long. As she spoke, Yu Qi stepped aside and a narrow path appeared in the thick fog. The two demons followed the narrow path and forced their way through. They were surrounded by palaces and pavilions. Not long after, the two demons stopped in front of one of the palaces. Inside the two demons' bodies, Qin Feng's inner demon doppelganger had finally grown to the same level as the two demons after absorbing some of their negative emotions. It had completely merged with the two demons' minds. If possible, Qin Feng could choose to immediately refine these two demons into his doppelganger. However, Qin Feng did not move. Instead, he planned to observe them for a while longer. He would only make a move after he had thoroughly familiarized himself with the two demons' habit. The palace was surrounded by a field of white bone flowers. These white bone flowers were born by absorbing the essence of countless bones. To the white bone demons, they were the most valuable treasures. The palace was surrounded by clumps of them. In front of the palace, Qin Feng saw a large tree. This was a strange ancient tree formed by condensed white bones. This ancient tree actually had purple fruits growing on it. These fruits were shaped like skulls and looked extremely strange. Even with Qin Feng's experience, he had never seen such a strange spiritual root. White Bone Sacred Tree. From the two demons' memories, Qin Feng obtained the name of this white bone sacred tree. When they walked up the stone steps made of white bones and entered the palace, the two white bone overlords at the door bowed to the two demons and said, "Lords, Madam is currently bathing. Madam has instructed that if the two of you arrive, you can go in and serve her." The two demons looked at each other and nodded. Bathing? In the water prison, Qin Feng was energized. In the palace, there were light gauze curtains. After going around a few white screens, with the help of the two demons' vision, Qin Feng could see the situation in the palace. The clear smoke of special sandalwood filled the empty space beside the pool. The large pool was also misty and rippling. With just a glance, Qin Feng's steel-like willpower could not help but tremble violently. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in his heart. He had thought of all the possibilities in advance, but he did not expect to see such a dreamlike scene in front of him. Her beautiful hair cascaded down like a waterfall on her beautiful shoulders and neck, and on the comfortable pillow. The bright and beautiful sky fortunately reflected on the beautiful woman's black hair, turning into waves of mysterious luster that flowed leisurely. Her long and elegant black hair could not hide her fair and elegant neck. Her gem-like skin flickered with white light as it stubbornly pierced through the obstruction of her black hair. It was like a sharp arrow that pierced through Qin Feng's heart through the gaps between the threads. Although the mist was hazy and dreamy, it could not block Qin Feng's gaze. From this corner, two perfectly shaped snow-white skin could not block Qin Feng's gaze. As if she had noticed the strange look in the two eyes, Madame of Bones had already noticed the arrival of Bai Yu and Bai Lan when they stepped into the palace. However, the two demons' gazes were somewhat unfamiliar to her. The White Bone Demon clan did not have any physiological emotions before reaching the Commander realm. Their emotions were relatively simple. They only had killing, devouring, and cultivating the 5 skandhas and 6 desires. Seeing Madame of Bones look over, Qin Feng hurriedly gave up control of the two demons' bodies. His demonic thoughts burrowed into the depths of the two demons' minds and handed over control of the bodies to them. Could it be that after absorbing the essence of that human child, they developed emotions in advance? Madame of Bones did not care about it. At this moment, she completely did not expect that a thief had already run into the place where she was bathing. The two subordinates had completely become Qin Feng's clones. Their beautiful figures were all in Qin Feng's eyes. "Bai Yu, Bai Lan, come and serve me." As she spoke, one of her jade-like hands wasn't idle. Her white and tender fingers held onto a gentle spray of water and slowly sprinkled it down onto her face and neck, causing droplets of water to slide down along her curves that caused others to go crazy before dripping into the water, and it was as easy as plucking the strings of a zither to play a surging and surging sound of nature. In the warm and soft water, the beauty's bright red face was like the peach blossoms in March. The originally holy and cold aura had turned into a charming spring under the ripples of her beautiful eyes. The soul-stirring plump red lips opened and closed slowly, and the white jade-like teeth bit her lower lip lightly, this little demon. Under the water prison, seeing this scene through the eyes of the two demons, Qin Feng felt the blood in his body explode instantly, and a surge of qi and blood rushed to his head. Chapter 478. Although the churning mist and the surface of the water covered with petals blocked the two demons' view of the full appearance, such a half-covered scene vividly set off the mystery and profoundness of the beauty. That jade-like fair skin made the flames in Qin Feng's heart turn into raging flames that soared into the sky with a bang, completely burning the fragile defense line in his heart. What a peerless beauty! The 5 accumulations and 6 desires of the demon's sword, and the demonic aura in the two demons' bodies surged, almost forming a demon heart. They directly jumped from the 9 heart demon to the invisible heavenly demon. Fortunately, the change in the demonic aura was integrated into Qin Feng's emotions. Madame of Bones also felt that the 2 bone demons had more thoughts and did not suspect anything. The 2 bone demons did not notice the change in the demons in their hearts. After being called by Madame of Bones, they cried out and twisted their white bone bodies to the front of Madame of Bones. The mist surged. Her snow-white skin was flushed red. When the ice melted, water droplets slowly flowed on her body, making the beautiful woman's body appear as smooth as cream. The beauty in the water was indescribably languid. "What are you two waiting for? Massage me as usual. Could it be that, after your strength improved, the two of you have become stupid? Madam, this is the first time the two of us feel that Madame's body is so perfect." As they spoke softly, the 2 bone demons bent their knees and came to the back of Madame of Bones, one on the left and one on the right. Their 2 white bone claws gently rubbed the beautiful skin of the beautiful woman. The touch was smooth, and the beautiful taste entered the heart of the 2 bone demons through their thoughts. Qin Feng's heart trembled slightly. Qin Feng had met many women, but only Madame of Bones had such vitality. It was as if with just a touch, he could reach the top of the clouds. With her beautiful eyes closed, Madame of Bones smiled gracefully and elegantly. "Your strength has improved greatly, and your little mouths have also improved a lot. You're flattering me. It's all because of Madame's good teaching. Otherwise, how could I be where I am today? Yes, to be able to serve Madame, it is the blessing of several lifetimes of cultivation for us." The 2 skeletal monsters clumsily tried to flatter her. Their fingers trembled as they excitedly hammered the beautiful woman's smooth shoulders. This boundless vitality and all sorts of flavors continuously entered Qin Feng's heart, making Qin Feng wish he could transform into a wolf and do it himself. Apart from that, Qin Feng felt a surge of excitement in his heart. To use such a method to take advantage of a quasi-supreme martial artist, and such a stunning beauty at that. This was a feeling that he had never experienced before. Seeing this, Qin Feng rolled his eyes and poured some of his understanding of martial arts into the minds of the 2 skeletal demons. Unknowingly, the 2 skeletal demons changed their massage technique. The rubbing of his palms was filled with a rhythm of life. The cold claws seemed to have a temperature, like a lover's palm slowly moving along the skin of a beautiful woman. Gradually, they moved out of the shoulder area. The beautiful woman with her eyes closed immediately felt this change, and giggled. "Well, it's getting better and better. It seems that you've absorbed the essence of the inner disciple called Qin Feng. You've already comprehended some mysteries of the physical body. You actually know how to massage some hidden acupoints to stimulate the resonance of the flesh." Qin Feng observed softly through the 2 skeletons. The beautiful woman didn't reject this change. Instead, she seemed to be enjoying it. The 2 skeletal demons looked at each other. Suddenly, a cunning look appeared in their eyes. One of the skeletal demons said, "Madam, in fact, I learned these tricks from the martial artist who was locked up. Madam, that martial artist begged us to absorb less of his life essence, so he imparted the mysteries of the martial artist's acupoints to us. We thought about it and agreed. The beautiful woman did not doubt him. Instead, she nodded her head and said, "Well, you two little guys have made a very good deal. Our skeletal demon clan can be reincarnated. In fact, we can be regarded as the real human clan. But after all, we are not as good as those martial artists who temper their bodies day and night. If we want to make up for our shortcomings, we still need to work hard in this aspect to achieve the unity of bones and flesh and comprehend the ultimate mystery of life." Bai said, "Madam, in fact, we also learned some massage techniques that are not passed to others. I'm sure you'll like it, but we're afraid of offending you." The beautiful woman laughed. "Whatever techniques you have, just use them. If you can make me happy, I'll give you another reward." "Yes, madam, then we'll offend you." The voices of the two skeletal demons revealed a hint of joy. The two demons looked at each other and were about to step forward. Suddenly, at this moment, a tyrannical consciousness temporarily controlled the minds of the two skeletal demons. The next moment, the big pervert Sheen officially appeared. The two skeletal demons looked at each other, and a trace of heat flashed in their eyes. At the same time, two kinds of power, one ice and one fire, appeared in the palms of the two skeletal demons. First was Bai, whose hands were covered in frost. His two hands moved along the beautiful woman's perfect back, groping below. A trace of cold slipped down the left side of her body. As soon as the cold hands moved, the cold immediately penetrated her body. The beautiful woman actually felt a trace of unbearable heat in her body. Her body was warm, and the acupoints all over her body seemed to have turned into hot springs. Her blood and chi flowed faster. Some acupoints that were not very flexible in the past were hot, and the blood and chi flowed faster. Well, not bad. The beautiful woman squinted her beautiful eyes and deliberately moved her body to provide space for the maids behind her. However, this movement caused her beautiful body to lean forward, revealing a trace of her snow-white fullness, which almost caused the big pervert behind her to spit fire from his eyes. Sucking in a breath of cold air, the big pervert Sheen was afraid that the beautiful woman would find out. He quickly stopped his mind from wandering. He steadily controlled the trace of cold to move around the beautiful woman's body again. When the cool air entered her heart, it actually turned into a trace of itch, causing the beautiful woman's legs to tighten. At this moment, the big pervert, in addition to communicating with some of the acupoints in the beautiful woman's body, began to probe a little bit. Traces of cold air went toward the beautiful woman's sensitive acupoints to stimulate. However, in order to prevent the beautiful woman from discovering a certain person's bad intentions, he probed step by step, first near her arms and legs. Heat and cold constantly alternated, and movement and stillness alternated. The beautiful woman's beautiful eyes were tainted with a trace of blurriness. Although the beautiful woman's mental state was tyrannical, this kind of feeling was something she had never felt in thousands of years. For a moment, she couldn't help but be intoxicated. In addition, the big pervert Sheen was very sensitive to changes in the heart, so he could adapt according to the situation. Unexpectedly, the beautiful woman didn't have the slightest suspicion. After a while of probing, seeing that the beautiful woman in front of him didn't have the mood to resist, the cunning big pervert Sheen's courage began to rise. He began to enjoy the beautiful woman's beautiful skin. The rubbing of his palms was no longer satisfied with just the back of her shoulders. From time to time, the edge of his palms seemed to be moving toward the beautiful woman's full body. Chapter 479. As if she felt the hand on her chest, the beautiful madam instinctively resisted in the depths of her flawless heart. Her long eyelashes trembled. The pervert Sheen was very sensitive to the changes in the heart. He immediately stopped his hand and only massaged the side. Too impatient, he thought in his heart. The pervert Sheen was very clear that if he let the beautiful woman in front of him feel that something was wrong, they would probably die together. Splash! At this moment, the sound of water splashing could be heard. Another skeleton demon actually walked into the pool. The beautiful madam heard the movement. Her beautiful eyes glanced around, and she immediately felt relieved. Bailon stretched out a hand. A fiery power lingered on his hand, and he grabbed a slender and flexible jade foot. Her foot was as white as jade, small and exquisite, white and tender. Her ankle was slender but not full. Her foot was slender, and the arch of her foot was slightly high. The curve was beautiful, and it was soft as if there were no bones. Her toes were well proportioned and neat, like 10 thin green onions. Her toenails were painted with pink glittering flowers, and they were like pearls embedded in the white and tender toes. Steadily controlling one of the beautiful woman's slender jade-like legs, White Orchid pressed a finger on it, and a wisp of heat flowed along the jade-like leg's meridians. When that wisp of heat entered her heart, the two powers of ice and fire intertwined and turned into a wonderful power. The beautiful woman could not help but bite her lower lip with her jade-like white teeth. Unable to suppress the surging vibrations in her heart, she let out a delicate cry. The beautiful madam's heart trembled violently in the simplest collision of yin and yang. This was no longer a simple collision of ice and fire. It was a Tao rhythm at the beginning of life. This was also the most treacherous part of the pervert Qin. At the beautiful madam's level, the lowest level of yin and yang power couldn't shake the other party's state of mind. Only this kind of design of the mystery of yin and yang operation could truly impact the other party's heart. These two powers of ice and fire were created when Qin Feng comprehended the black tortoise yin and yang, and he comprehended the yin and yang rotation. The dignified and noble beautiful madam couldn't help but change her expression. She felt that the qi and blood that she couldn't circulate with confidence in the past actually began to circulate. The two distinct life and death qi in the qi and blood actually showed signs of merging into one in this change. At this moment, the beautiful madam's heart had undergone a tremendous change. If the life and death qi were to completely merge, she would be able to overcome the third chaos tribulation. However, what she didn't know at this moment was that while she was distracted, a thief's hand silently slid towards her snow-white chest. Kacha kacha! Just as big pervert Qin was about to succeed, the sound of Bone Demon's hurried footsteps came from outside the palace. The beautiful madam was instantly awakened. Big pervert Qin sighed in his heart and quickly withdrew his finger. He retreated to the side and looked at her calmly. Outside the palace, a white-clothed, plump, and beautiful woman hurriedly walked in with several fragrant maidservants. "Yu Qi, what happened?" The beautiful madam frowned slightly. With this, the signs of the fusion of life and death qi in her body were instantly extinguished. How could she not be angry after losing such a great opportunity? Yu Qi stepped forward and said, "Madam, King Xianyang is here. He's right outside the cave." "It's him?" The beautiful madam's face instantly turned cold. She waved her hand. Bai Yu and Bai Lan understood and reluctantly got up from the water. Whoosh whoosh. With a flash of water, the beautiful madam's body was covered in a black veil. That faintly discernible beautiful scenery was enough to make any man's eyes stare straight. "Yu Qi, change your clothes. Also, tell Ling Ji to be prepared. Xianyang has long coveted my extreme yin essence. This time, I'm afraid he won't let it go. Tell the disciples to be careful." As she spoke, many commander-level bone demons hurriedly moved. Bai Yu and Bai Lan were brought to a cave by a commander-level bone demon. In this cave, there were hundreds and thousands of warrior-level bone skeletons waiting. The entire cave of bones and beauty was filled with the aura of a great battle. There were also several bone overlords with nervous expressions around. Including Bai Yu and Bai Lan, there seemed to be 7 or 8 of them. Each of them was filled with murderous aura. In front of them was another commander-level bone demon called Bai Yu. Many auras blended with each other and resonated with the auras of the cave abodes in the cave of bones and beauty. This was obviously an extremely brilliant battle formation. Who is this Xianyang? How dare he ruin my plans? In the depths of Bai Yu and Bai Lan's souls, Qin Feng secretly felt pity. They were so close just now. Secretly gritting his teeth, Qin Feng used the power of the heavenly demon to flip through the memories of Bai Yu and Bai Lan. Soon, his expression became serious. Fortunately, Bai Yu and Bai Lan had special identities. They were Madame of Bone's personal subordinates and knew some extremely secret. This Xianyang was another terrifying overlord in the depths of the Bone battlefield. His strength was even more tyrannical than the Cave of Bones and Beauty. This was not the first time Xianyang had come to pester Madame of Bones. The reason was simple. It turned out that King Xianyang had taken a fancy to Madame of Bone's primordial Yin and wanted to use it to break through to the next major realm. However, King Xianyang originally did not have the confidence to deal with Madame of Bones, so he had been coaxing and pestering her time and time again to ask for her hand in marriage. However, recently, King Xianyang seemed to have obtained some kind of trump card and became much more unyielding. He began to snatch by force and forced his way in several times. In the few small-scale battles in the Cave of Bones and Beauty, Madame of Bones was at a disadvantage. The cave was filled with an uneasy aura. I wonder if Madame can stop King Xianyang this time. She should be able to. Our Madame has already passed 2 heavenly tribulations. Coupled with the Heartbreak Bow and Heartbreak Arrow, even some 3rd tribulation might not be able to do anything to her. In the cave, many bone overlords were discussing spiritedly. However, their expressions were cold, and they were all like killing machines. He released his control over Bai Yu and Bai Lan's minds. Deep in his soul, Qin Feng was secretly shocked. Every time a martial Dao expert passed a chaos heavenly tribulation, the strength of a martial Dao expert would increase greatly. This kind of leap was even more exaggerated and despair-inducing than martial overlords and Sea of Rebirth realm. Madame of Bones was able to defeat a 3rd tribulation mighty as a 2nd tribulation mighty. Her strength was truly shocking. However, Qin Feng was certain that since King Xianyang dared to come looking for trouble, he definitely had something up his sleeve. However, no matter who wins or loses, it might be an opportunity for me. Taking advantage of the chaos of the battle, I can quickly leave the Bone battlefield. Looking at the tense atmosphere in the cave, Qin Feng thought. Chapter 480. A storm was approaching. At this moment, in Qin Feng's spirit sea, a bunch of grayish-white soul flames were being absorbed by his soul true body. After breaking through the white bone chain, the bone-softening cave had become Qin Feng's place to cultivate. Previously, the flame of hope had devoured so many white bone demons. Now, every drop had become Qin Feng's foundation. His soul true body had already broken through 8 inches and reached the limit of 9 inches. In terms of the strength of his soul true body, Qin Feng wasn't inferior to some of the veteran martial Dao overlords. He was just short of passing the tribulation and transforming his soul into the martial Dao true soul. The difference between the soul and the true soul was like tofu and diamond. This was the biggest difference between the two. The martial Dao true soul already had some characteristics of longevity. Seems like it's time to break through to the Sea of Reincarnation realm. Only by breaking through to the Sea of Reincarnation realm can I comprehend more of the Chaos Tree's mysteries and the Void's mysteries. Sighing, Qin Feng prepared to completely open the white bone chain. However, Qin Feng knew that now wasn't the time to break through. Qin Feng was waiting for the Madame of Bones and King Xianyang to fall out. In the core palace of the White Bone Beauty Cave. Inside the majestic palace, there were carved beams and painted pillars. It was dazzling and filled with clouds. A voice filled with explosive power sounded. "How is it, Madame of Bones? It's a win-win situation if you follow me." The person who spoke had a tall and sturdy figure. He wore a scarlet iron armor and had a strong physique. His eyes were especially fiery and had an irresistible aggressiveness. As we all know, a martial magnate will have to go through 9 chaos tribulations to break through to the martial Tao Almighty Realm. A first tribulation Almighty Realm cultivator's true soul will turn into a true soul, a great tribulation Almighty Realm cultivator's true soul will turn into a Een true soul, and a third tribulation Almighty Realm cultivator's true soul will turn into a pure Yang true soul. The red-clothed Prince Xianyang stared at the beautiful madam with a burning gaze. Madam of Bones, you have an extreme Een body. Even though you have the aptitude of extreme Een and have already passed 2 chaos tribulations, you have also suffered the pain of extreme Een. You have never been able to see through the essence of Yin and Yang. You also know that I have the profound Yang divine body, which contains a bit of true Yang. I am blessed by the heavens in the pure Yang martial Tao. It is only a matter of time before I comprehend the pure Yang. As long as you and I cultivate together, we may be able to comprehend the essence of Yin and Yang. The beautiful madam sneered and stared coldly at Prince Xianyang. Xianyang, you don't have to waste your time. True Yang is not pure Yang. Although you have the profound Yang divine body and have 6 profound Yang divine bones, at most, you only have 1 Yang body. Pure Yang has 9 Yang, and 9 Yang together is the supreme pure Yang divine body. You don't have to show off your tricks. You want me to dual cultivate with you? Dream on. Rumble. A dazzling red light shot out from Prince Xuanyang's body, and the temperature of the entire cave of red beauty and white bones suddenly increased by several times. Prince Xianyang turned around and stared at the beautiful madam with a trace of indifference in his eyes. By Qin, it seems like a battle between us is inevitable. Bai Qin was the name of the Madam of Bones. Only a few people knew the name of the Madam of Bones, and Prince Xianyang was one of them. On the main seat, Bai Qin's beautiful eyes were like the cold moon in the 9 heavens. Prince Xianyang, I heard that you have already cultivated the revered furnace scripture to the 9th level. This time, let me see what kind of trump card you have that makes you so arrogant. I hope you don't regret it. Prince Xuanyang's clone dissipated silently. The Madam of Bones sneered. How could she not know what Prince Xianyang was up to? He wanted to plunder her primordial Yin and devour her hell of bones, so that he could refine Yin and Yang and comprehend the ultimate meaning of Yin and Yang. Rumble. The entire cave of red beauty and white bones was shaking, and a terrifying heat wave poured into the cave of red beauty and white bones. At this moment, the Madam of Bones' expression changed, and she raised her head. In the main hall, the group of White Bones commanders changed their expressions at the same time. He took action so quickly. Next to the main seat, a beautiful woman in white had a stern look in her eyes. Madam, it seems like Prince Xianyang was already prepared. The Madam of Bones had a faint ominous feeling. This time, Prince Xuanyang's attack was too rushed. Something was very wrong. Outside the hall, a young girl in white hurriedly walked in. In the main hall, dozens of White Bones commanders looked at the young girl in white at the same time. She was the other commander under the Madam of Bones' command, Ling Ji. She was also a First Tribulation Almighty. However, at this moment, Ling Ji's face was pale with a trace of anxiety. Madam, the Een Mountain 9 passes have all fallen. So fast. In the main hall, everyone's expression changed drastically, including Yuji's. The Een Mountain 9 passes were the 9 passes that guarded the Cave of White Bones and Beauties. Usually, even if the Cave of White Bones and Beauties was always at a disadvantage, Prince Xianyang would need at least 10 days to half a month to break through these 9 passes. Rumble. At this moment, the entire Cave of Red Bones shook violently. Many rocks in the cave above their heads rustled and fell, on the verge of collapse. Sitting on the main seat, the Madam of Bones seemed to see through the entire cave abode. She saw countless skeletons outside the cave of red bones under Prince Xuanyang's control, turning into a huge Xianyang divine axe and fiercely bombarding the cave of red bones. The Xianyang divine axe emitted a terrifyingly high temperature, and there was a huge fiery red country vaguely within it. The fluctuations emitted by the axe had already surpassed the realm of a third tribulation almighty. Vaguely, pure yang was born in the void. Under this brilliance, the array formation operated by many white bones demons in the cave of red bones was full of flaws. Almost every attack killed thousands of experts in the cave of red bones and white bones, turning them into dust. No wonder Xianyang is so arrogant. He actually cultivated the Xianyang armor-breaking great divine ability. This Xianyang divine axe's armor-breaking power is said to be able to split heaven and earth. It is extremely effective against many battle arrays, but it can't do anything to me. Accompanied by a sneer, the crumbling cave abode suddenly condensed. In the void, an invisible light formed from the countless white bones outside, linking together and suppressing it. Let the children join forces and form the great white bones primordial fiend god array. Disciples, follow me to operate the hell of white bones to suppress the array formation. The Madam of Bones stood up, and a murderous aura surged and swept through the entire cave abode, causing the void to faintly tremble. Vaguely, a huge world appeared behind her. It was a huge world tens of thousands of feet wide. There were mountains, seas, clouds, and trees. The mountains were mountains of white bones, and the sea was an endless sea of vengeful souls. There was a faint moon overhead, and the ground was deep and dark. This was no longer a real world. It was just like the netherworld. In the main hall, 7 or 8 white bones commanders looked at each other. With a long roar, they turned into 7 or 8 white lights and entered the hell of white bones. The hell of white bones doubled in size, and the illusory image of the world became even larger. The aura emitted by the Madam of Bones increased by 3 or 4 times. Her aura was like layers of mist, breaking through the sky. In the bone-softening cave, Qin Feng felt the violent vibration above his head. He opened his eyes, and a sharp light flickered. An invisible force was released, and with a clank, the white bone chains around him shattered, and countless fragments flew out. Chapter 481. When he broke free from the shackles, Madam of Bones, who was in possession of the white bone chains, sensed it. She frowned. At this moment, Prince Xianyang, who was outside the cave, took out a dilapidated bronze furnace. Seeing the bronze furnace and sensing it, Madam of Bones' expression changed. A huge pressure appeared in her spiritual sense, and she no longer cared about pursuing Qin Feng. After breaking free from the shackles, Qin Feng's figure flashed and flew out of the bone-softening cave like a ghost. Qin Feng was about to escape from the Bone Beauty Cave, but he suddenly stood still and sensed. In his spiritual sense, 2 huge forces were fighting fiercely. He couldn't help but think. At this moment, Prince Xianyang and Madam of Bones are fighting outside. If I escape now, I will become their target. Why don't I just hide in Madam of Bones' lair and wait for an opportunity to leave this devil's den? Qin Feng's figure flickered and scanned the surroundings. After a while, Qin Feng appeared in front of a loft. He scanned with his spiritual sense. Seeing that no one was inside, he immediately hid inside. The loft's decorations were rather monotonous. Qin Feng saw a few decorations in the room. Other than a skull, there was a bed. The decorations were rather unique. Qin Feng casually found a place and sat down. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Qin Feng prepared to break through to the Sea of Rebirth realm. At this moment, the secret technique of the 5 sacred mountains was circulating in his body. The 5 sacred mountains of the 5 attributes were absorbing the essence of the spirit veins. Qin Feng still felt a little regretful. Among the 5 sacred mountains, only the fire attribute sacred mountain and the earth attribute sacred mountain had true divine items to suppress them. Although the other water attribute, metal attribute, and wood attribute sacred mountains were formed, they didn't have any items to suppress them. However, this didn't affect him from advancing to the Sea of Rebirth realm. He had the experience of advancing to the Sea of Rebirth realm once. Advancing to the Sea of Rebirth realm again was a matter of course. The galaxy true force in his body flowed. Strands of void force were refined, and integrated into the true force in his body. Gathering void true force was an extremely difficult process for ordinary experts of the wondrous void realm. Ordinary martial artists in the miraculous void realm could only use their minds to interfere with the void for the first time, much less capture the power of the void. It was like an adult running into the sea to catch fish with his bare hand. This was like looking for a needle in a haystack. But for the current Qin Feng, this process was relatively simple. At the moment, he had the void true power in his body, which was like riding a big ship with all kinds of fishing tools. Capturing the power of the void was like searching for something in his pocket. 1 strand, 2 strands, 3 strands. 99 strands. A total of 99 strands of void energy fused into the true power. After the 99 strands of void true power merged into his body, the originally abnormally dense void true power glowed with a grayish color. This was the color of the void. The originally surging void true power was actually condensed once again, but it was only 1/3 of the original. Whoosh! Listening to the sound of the celestial river true force surging in his ears, Qin Feng felt that the celestial river true force at this moment was like a long river in the void. When this void true power revolved in his body, Qin Feng suddenly felt that his body had merged into the void, comprehending many of the profound meaning of the void that he had never comprehended before. At this moment, the quality of the void true power in Qin Feng's body was simply shocking. When an ordinary meridian's condensation realm expert broke through to the Sea of Reincarnation realm, to be able to condense 99 strands of the power of the void was already considered a peak. To be able to condense 99 strands of the power of the void was extremely rare. Qin Feng used the art of primeval chaos stars to condense 99 strands of the power of the void twice. If this were to spread out, it would be simply unbelievable. Qin Feng only felt that his ability to control the surrounding void was not inferior to the realm of the martial way giants in his previous life. It was even superior. This ability to control the void was simply beyond Qin Feng's imagination. It was even more exaggerated than those legendary peerless geniuses who had comprehended the profound meaning of the void. In fact, with a single thought, Qin Feng felt that he was simply a monster. Qin Feng suppressed this strange feeling. Qin Feng revolved the void true power that had been condensed to the limit and started to fuse with the spiritual meridians in his body. This was the last step to breaking through to the Sea of Reincarnation realm. At this moment, the original 60 spiritual meridians in Qin Feng's body were only left with 5. The 5 thick spiritual meridians were like 5 dragon meridians, swaying their heads and wagging their tails. Every moment they would swallow and spit out a huge amount of yuan qi. Metal spirit, wood spirit, water spirit, fire spirit, earth spirit. Every time the 5 spiritual meridians fused with one, the aura on Qin Feng's body would become stronger by 30%. When the 5 spiritual meridians fused with the void true power, Qin Feng's aura instantly reached a peak. Kacha kacha! A formless light burst out from Qin Feng's body, shattering the void around him. An aura suppressed the void. Sea of Reincarnation realm. Breakthrough. Qin Feng closed his eyes, his body floated in the air. His body was surrounded by rings of corporeal true energy, binding him tightly. It was like a desolate snake coiling around his body, stepping on a dragon and soaring through the air. The surging void true power vibrated, forming a huge domain around his body. This was the void domain that only Sea of Reincarnation realm experts had. However, the aura on his body didn't stop climbing. The accumulation in his body was too dense. The surging void true power rushed out from his pores like a flood. The sea of reincarnation was expanding at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. Countless void true power enveloped the sea of reincarnation. Strands of void true power intertwined with Qin Feng's fingers. Strands of void true power were condensed and formed a whirlpool in the middle of the sea of reincarnation. In the whirlpool, a small space crystal was born. Just as Qin Feng was breaking through to the sea of reincarnation realm, the cave of red beauty white bones was shaking violently and was on the verge of collapse. Rumble! In the sky, a huge furnace like the sun smashed down like a meteor. On the ground, 12 terrifyingly tall white skeletons roared. One of them was instantly blasted into pieces by the sun-like furnace. When one of the white skeletons was destroyed, several white skeleton overlords in the cave of white bones and beauty turned into ashes with a loud crack. At the same time, in a secret realm with white bones as its foundation, a mountain of white bones collapsed silently. With a flash of light, Yuqi appeared on the highest mountain in the center of the hell of white bones. Madam, Bai Ling has fallen. This is already the third commander-level expert that has fallen. Prince Xianyang has a true treasure. If we continue to resist, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on for long. Madam of White Bone's beautiful eyes flashed with coldness. Yuqi's beautiful eyes contained a trace of worry. Just like how martial artists' cultivation aptitude was divided into different grades, treasures of heaven and earth were also divided into different grades. The lower grade was called a spiritual weapon, while the higher grade was called a true treasure. True treasures were extremely rare and precious. Normally, even martial arts giants might not be able to control a true treasure. True treasures contained a mysterious and incredible power that could often double the strength of martial arts experts. For example, the Abyss Demon diagram that Qin Feng condensed was actually a true treasure. The bloodthirsty bone chain that Madam of White Bones refined was a true treasure. However, it was only a false true treasure. However, even if it was a false true treasure, once it was locked, even a martial arts expert would not be able to break free. The furnace in Prince Xuanyang's hand was a very rare intermediate true treasure. Chapter 482. The power of a true artifact could destroy heaven and earth. A chill enveloped the entire white bone hell. Rumble! At this moment, the sun-like furnace bombarded the white bones and red beauty. The blazing golden light pierced through the formation, and countless white bone demons wailed and turned into ashes. There was also a trace of golden light that pierced through the formation and the crystal wall of the white bone hell mystic realm, dispersing the dark clouds above the mystic realm. As the golden light shone, countless white bone demons melted silently. The Madam of Bone's expression changed, and a bone dragon formed from white bones flew out from the ground, blocking the hole that the golden light had pierced through. Roar! Accompanied by a series of majestic dragon roars, the golden light only began to dissipate after more than half of the divine skeletal dragon had been corroded. However, the scars left by the golden light on the white bone hell mystic realm couldn't be removed in a short time. Where did King Xianyang get such a terrifying true artifact? Beside the Madam of Bones, Ling Ji's expression was ugly. The white bone hell was already a small mystic realm, and it already had a powerful spatial defense. However, it was still penetrated by a single attack. What a pity! Although our Madam's white bone hell is powerful and has merged many of our white bone spell worlds, its potential is top-notch, and its size isn't inferior to some large mystic realms. However, it doesn't have a spirit root to suppress it, so it can't integrate all the power. As a result, all the power is scattered like sand, and that's why it was so easily penetrated. Yuqi sighed inwardly as she pondered. Although the white bone hell was powerful, it could only rely on the white bone commanders to condense and transfer the vital energy. This efficiency was too low. Once the battle started, they immediately panicked. Yuji looked at the Madam of Bones and said, "Madam, please make a decision. The white bone primordial fiend god formation can't hold on much longer. That oven-like true artifact is too powerful. It's like a real sun, and the golden light it emits seems to be able to illuminate our white bone hell. Don't worry. Although I don't know where King Xianyang got a mid-grade true artifact, my white bone hell is definitely not to be trifled with." The Madam of Bones' cold gaze landed outside the white bone cave, and there was a trace of a sneer in her eyes. At this moment, King Xianyang was sitting on a throne in a furnace that was as bright as the sun. His domineering gaze fell on both sides. "What do you think?" At this moment, there were two martial arts experts watching the battle. One of them was a handsome young man who looked to be in his late 20s, but he exuded the aura of a martial arts overlord. He was none other than the most outstanding son of the Heaven and Earth sect leader, Xian Wuji. At the same time, he was Qin Feng's rival in love. The other one's aura was even more terrifying. Around him, yin and yang rotated, revealing the power of yin and yang. It was terrifying. He closed his eyes and stood beside the youth, not saying a word. This was a martial arts expert. From the looks of it, Xian Wuji was actually the leader. The young man in white, Xian Wuji, leisurely looked down at the cave of white bones and red faces that was on the verge of collapse. His gaze swept over the cave of white bones and red faces beneath his feet, and a trace of a smile appeared in his eyes. King Xianyang is indeed one of the 10 great kings of the primordial battlefield. After this battle, his ranking will probably rise by a few ranks. King Xuanyang's eyes flickered as he smiled. "Young Master Xian, you flatter me. If not for the support of the Heaven and Earth sect, I might not be able to take Bai Qin down." Xian Wuji waved his hand. "This is nothing. This is a deal. The Heaven and Earth sect will help you refine the Sun Cauldron, and you will help me take down Bai Qin. This is a fair deal." "Fair? If not for the fact that the second half of the Sun Cauldron is in your hands, you are not qualified to make a deal with me." As it pondered in its heart and smiled, a trace of greed flashed in its eyes. Xian Wuji's identity was extraordinary. He was one of the most beloved sons of the Heaven and Earth sect leader. He definitely had many secrets and secret treasures. If he could take them one by one, he might be able to improve his strength greatly. "Young master, you have to be careful of King Xianyang. King Xianyang is a variant species expert. Such an existence is dangerous and cunning. None of them are good people. I saw that his words were ambiguous and he ate the candied fruit. I'm afraid he has other intentions. Uncle Su, don't worry. I have already known about this demon's tricks. The reason why I feign civility with him is because I want to use him to pull out the last few nails of Xingqian School in the battlefield of bones." Xian Wuji secretly transmitted his voice as a cold smile appeared in his eyes. How could he not know what King Xianyang was thinking? This was because he had no other choice. Xingqian School had expanded too quickly in the past few years. He had to curb it. This trip was to pull out the nails of Xingqian School in the battlefield of bones and create some trouble for Xingqian School. The Madam of Bones, Bai Qin, had an unclear relationship with Xingqian School. She was one of his main targets for this trip. Of course, the most important thing was that he found out from some secret channels that the Madam of Bones had an extremely important primordial treasure. This primordial treasure was called the Divine Wood Bead. It was because of this treasure that the Madam of Bones was able to cultivate the profundity of life and completely reincarnate. However, he was afraid of the sun oven in King Xuanyang's hands. It's a pity that such a treasure fell into the hands of a variant species like King Xianyang. After this battle, I must kill this demon. Only I am worthy of a treasure like the sun oven. Traces of killing intent flickered as Xian Wuji spoke with a smile. When his gaze swept across and landed on the Madam of Bones in the depths of the Cave of Bones and Beauty, a beautiful figure in white appeared in his heart. A trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes. Since the All-Star Martial competition, for some reason, Bai Yen-er's attitude towards him had changed greatly. This time, she didn't even say goodbye and left directly. Bai Yen-er, whether you are willing or not, I, Xian Wuji, have taken a fancy to you. You have no choice but to agree. Rumble. At this moment, an earth-shattering explosion woke Xian Wuji up. Looking over, the entire cave of bones and beauty collapsed with a bang. The ground caved in, and the hundreds of earth-yin veins gathered around the cave of bones and beauty were destroyed. Countless yin qi flowed out like a leaking sieve. The black yin qi rushed out, and the world in the center was faintly discernible, revealing its original form. After several bombardments from the sun oven, the Madam of Bone's true lair was finally exposed. With her lair exposed, the Madam of Bones was like a fish on a chopping board, at the mercy of others. Just when King Xianyang destroyed the Cave of Bones and Beauty, in an underground pavilion, a black-clothed youth opened his eyes, and a surge of aura was emitted. Looking at the thumb-sized spatial spirit core in his body, Qin Feng was inwardly surprised. I didn't expect that I would break through the first realm of the Sea Revolution realm, the Spirit Sea realm, and advance to the second realm of the Sea Revolution realm. Chapter 483. With the spatial spirit core as the center, the surrounding galaxy true force revolved. Walala! The galaxy true force that had reached the peak of the spatial realm was like a roaring galaxy that shot up from Qin Feng. Puchi! Puchi! Without any sound, a formless radiance shot out from his body. The void rippled with Qin Feng as the center and spread out 30 feet around him. Boom! An earth-shattering sound came from the top of his head. In Qin Feng's spirit sense, a tremendous and blazing force suddenly runs through the entire earth vein. Like a dragon bone, the cave of white bones and red faces breaks and collapses with a cracking sound. Bang! Countless rocks fell from the top of his head. With a thought, Qin Feng froze the void above his head. The rocks around him seemed to have stopped in time. Void solidification. Qin Feng revealed a smile. This was the void solidification ability that only Sea Reincarnation realm experts had. It was also called spatial lock or spatial domain. In the next moment, Qin Feng used his spiritual perception and the rocks above his head started to fall. In the void, a rock was falling at a snail's speed. This was void stagnation. With a thought, Qin Feng sent the rock flying back to the stone wall. This was Void Rewind, the ability of the Void Dimension to make the rock fly back. It's a pity that I've only mastered Void Freeze, Void Stagnation, and Void Rewind. As for the rest, I'm still exploring Void Shuttle, Void Teleport, Void Acceleration, and Void Exile. Qin Feng muttered. In the next moment, he laughed. He was too greedy. Ordinary Sea Reincarnation realm experts, or even the entire Sea Reincarnation realm experts, could only grasp void solidification. It was extremely rare to be able to grasp two-type. Only Sea Reincarnation realm experts who specialized in the void esoteric could grasp more than 3 types like him. With a smile, Qin Feng was confident that as long as he was given time, he might be able to comprehend the remaining void esoteric in a short period of time. With the spatial treasure, the universe book, as well as the chaos tree, which was a god-grade void spiritual root, Qin Feng was confident that he could comprehend the void profundity to perfection. After ascending to the spatial realm, the next step was to comprehend the power of the Empyrean realm and condense his spatial spirit core into an Empyrean spirit core. The heaven-rank power was very simple. In fact, it was the embryonic form of the power of the arcane realm. Qin Feng had already successfully opened up the Chaos Heaven's mystic realm. This wasn't difficult for Qin Feng at all. It was very simple for him to break through to the third realm of the Sea of Samsara, the heaven-seated realm. Boom! Just as Qin Feng was thinking, a loud cracking sound came from above his head. A terrifying yuan qi storm appeared in his spiritual sense. His expression changed drastically as he raised his head, only to see a huge lotus made of white bones appear above his head. Madame of Bone's white bone purgatory transformed into an enormous white bone lotus. Outside, a furnace that resembled the sun descended from the sky like a shooting star and landed on the white bone lotus. Bang! Billowing heat descended as a dazzling golden light pierced over. Qin Feng's expression changed. In his spiritual perception, he felt as though the surrounding world was melting from the high temperature. Even his soul was melting. This is a true artifact. That so-called King Xianyang actually has a true artifact. He gasped in his heart. The astral river true force in his body surged out like a torrent, revolving around his body and enveloping him. In just a moment, Qin Feng's astral river true force, which had reached the third stage of the extreme Tao, was depleted by more than half. Qin Feng had a feeling that if this golden light made contact with his body would vanish completely. Even his soul would turn into ashes. In his shock, Qin Feng waved his sleeves as the surging astral river true force surged out, transforming into an earth-yellow mountain that appeared around him. This was the Earth Elemental Divine Mountain of the 5 mountain sacred mountains. The 5 element meridians had been completely absorbed by Qin Feng's astral river true force, and even the 5 mountain sacred mountains had been completely melted into it. The 5 mountain sacred mountains could appear at any time. The Earth Elemental Divine Mountain was a semi-true artifact cultivated with the Divine Mountain Pearl as its foundation. It was a semi-divine artifact with unparalleled defense and suppression. Rumble! Countless golden lights shone on the earth-yellow divine mountain like raindrops hitting a banana leaf. Countless holes appeared on the mountain, but the earth-yellow essence qi swept them and quickly restored them. Seeing this, Qin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. This 5 mountain sacred mountains was indeed tyrannical. Especially the defense of the Earth Elemental Divine Mountain, which was even stronger than the chaotic Earth Tribulation and the Yin-Yang Divine Diagram. However, Qin Feng knew that this was just the aftermath. If he faced it head-on, the 5 mountain sacred mountains, which had not yet deshang, might not be able to withstand the terrifying attack of the true artifact. I wonder how Madame of Bones is doing. She shouldn't be smashed to death, right? Looking up, Qin Feng's eyes were filled with surprise. In the void above his head, the white bone purgatory formed by the white bone purgatory bloomed like a lotus flower. There were countless vortexes around it. Move, shake, advance, retreat, rub, coil, flick, twist, follow, hold, absorb. The white bone lotus flower released a strange force field. When the golden light transformed from the sun furnace bombarded the white bone lotus flower, it immediately became slippery and collided with the power of the secret realm released by the white bone lotus flower. The giant white bone lotus flower released its power layer by layer. Crack! Crack! Qin Feng's spiritual sense sensed that the edges of the white bone lotus flower were broken, but it was not penetrated by the sun furnace. After that attack, the red sun above his head began to prepare for the next attack. Obviously, it was not easy to operate the true artifact. Even with King Xuanyang's strength, he still needed time to prepare. Qin Feng glanced at the white bone lotus flower. At this moment, the edges of the white bone lotus flower were broken. If this continued, the white bone ancient people's secret realm would be destroyed. It's a pity that they don't know how to use such a large-scale secret realm. Qin Feng felt a little sorry for the Madame of Bones. The battle between martial Dao Almighties was actually more about borrowing the power of secret realms. Judging from the scale of the Madame of Bones' secret realm, it was not inferior to some large or medium-sized secret realms. It was full of power. It was just that this power was not fully unleashed. If it was fully unleashed, it might be possible to defeat King Xianyang. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Qin Feng had a way to temporarily unleash the potential of the White Bone Purgatory's secret realm. Moreover, it was very likely that he would be able to severely injure King Xianyang. Unfortunately, the Madam of Bones did not have good intentions towards him. Qin Feng could not wait for the Madam of Bones to be unlucky. On the spot, a silver light flew out like a ghost. It shuttled through the ruins of the White Bone Cave, and arrived outside the cave in the blink of an eye. Qin Feng looked up at the White Bone Cave behind him, and prepared to quietly leave the place where the two sides were fighting. When Qin Feng's figure flashed and appeared, both sides sensed it. When Qin Feng flew out from the vermilion-red sun, King Xianyang frowned. A black-clothed young man appeared in his divine perception. A Sea Rebirth Realm martial artist? This young man seemed to have crawled out from the White Bone Cave. Little ant. Just pinch him to death. A trace of ridicule appeared at the corner of King Xuanyang's mouth. A sharp claw pierced through the air. It was as fast as lightning and as big as a mountain. Red clouds rolled in the sky and shrouded Qin Feng from all directions. Qin Feng sensed a terrifying aura descending from the air. The space around him froze, and he couldn't move at all. A terrifying claw pressed down on his heart, and a temperature that could incinerate the heavens and earth wanted to melt him completely. There are 2 more updates. Chapter 484. Qin Feng knew better than anyone how powerful a casual strike from a martial arts mighty figure was. Qin Feng's 48,000 pores constricted violently under the threat of death as his muscles tensed up. In his rage, the galaxy quintessential force in his body surged out like a river, forming an earth elemental divine mountain. Undeterred, Qin Feng circulated the chaos earth tribulation with all his might. He stomped on the ground as the boundless powers of the earth surged, forming layers of circular barriers around him. However, that was all. The deathly aura deep in his soul did not dissipate. Qin Feng gritted his teeth as he squeezed out the nearly depleted galaxy quintessential force in his body. He crazily extracted the Chaos Heavens Yuan Qi as surging Yuan Qi surged in from the Chaos Heavens. His meridians burned with pain as though they were about to explode. Ignoring the excruciating pain, Qin Feng powered the Black Tortoise Yin Yang Dao with all his might. The galaxy quintessential force surged out like a flood, forming a roaring black tortoise. A gigantic flaming claw that blotted out the sky came crashing down. Kacha! Qin Feng's pupils constricted. In just 3 seconds, the Earth Elemental Divine Mountain was completely pulverized. Boom! The next moment, a massive force struck the Chaos Earth tribulation. With a rumble, it was as though a meteor had struck the barrier. A black scorching hot and extremely poisonous flame aura extended along the protective shield. Qin Feng felt an extremely scorching power surging. His life force was ignited, and his blood and qi were dried up. It wanted to burn him into ashes. This was the purgatory poison fire that King Xianyang had condensed from the 5 poisons of greed, anger, coagulation, slowness, and infatuation from countless white bone phase bodies. This flame was specially used to corrupt a warrior's flesh and soul. It was abnormally vicious. His flesh, blood, and essence energies emitted the black flames. Even his soul felt a sense of degeneration as though it was about to fall into boundless darkness. Chaos Fire Great Divine Power! Qin Feng roared angrily as the Chaos Fire Great Divine Power swept out from his body. Wisps of black purgatory poison flame were sucked into Qin Feng's flame of Chaos Divine Ability, and when the Divine Ability returned to his body, Qin Feng realized that a scarlet-red, majestic, and illusory figure with a tall hat and wide belt had formed inside his body. Qin Feng was overjoyed. This was the avatar of the Fire God. This was the symbol of a small success in the primal Chaos Fire Great Divine Ability. Once the shadow of the Fire God completely solidified, this ability would be completely Dishang. Rumble! At this time, Qin Feng's heart suddenly shook, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. When he raised his head, Qin Feng's face was pale. In just a few moments, the second layer of the Chaos Earth Tribulation was finally broken. The scarlet-red claws pierced through Qin Feng's black tortoise true body like lightning. Crack! Qin Feng seemed to see a huge hole in the black tortoise armor, as if it was smashed by a sharp claw. Poochie! This black tortoise was formed by Qin Feng's true body. When the black tortoise was pierced, Qin Feng's meridians seemed to have all been broken. However, these 3 layers of protection bought time for Qin Feng. He endured the pain of his meridians being broken, and his figure was like a gust of wind, breaking through the shackles of the void. A human figure flashed out like lightning, and his body staggered on the ground. Qin Feng felt intense pain all over his body. On the spot, rumble! A thunderous sound shook the heavens. Dust flew everywhere. Smoke filled the air. Raising his head, Qin Feng's eyes swept around, and his pupils shrank. There was actually a huge claw mark that was close to 100 feet long. He actually dodged it. King Xuanyang's eyebrows twitched, and a trace of surprise flashed across his handsome face. Xian Wuji and that mysterious martial Dao expert's attention was also attracted. It's him. Xian Wuji's eyes swept over, and he instantly recognized the identity of the black-clothed youth. His azure-like eyebrows furrowed, and a trace of fierce, killing intent appeared. King Xianyang said in surprise. What? Young Master Xian knows this ant? That's right, this kid is a junior with great potential from Xingchen School. A 15-year-old grade 4 alchemist. Azure Dragon's first seat. Top 3 in the All-Star Assembly, a marquee genius. Every time he thought of this title, the killing intent in Xian Wuji's eyes grew denser. If this kind of existence matured, it would be a huge threat to the universal sect. King Xianyang, please don't let this kid go. All right, since young Master Xian has spoken, this kid must die today. King Xianyang nodded, and his tone seemed to have sentenced Qin Feng's fate. This kid actually dodged King Xuanyang's attack. With his sea reincarnation realm cultivation, he was actually able to escape the attack of a martial Dao expert. On a white bone mountain in the white bone purgatory, many white bone lords were tongue-tied and had a shocked expression. If it was a different place, even a martial Dao expert wouldn't be able to withstand King Xuanyang's attack. Qin Feng was only at the sea reincarnation realm, but not only did he withstand it, he even escaped with his life. Beside Madame of Bones, Yu Qi sighed softly. No wonder that Xingchen School's young master Yi needed Madame to make a move. With such a competitor, no wonder he would be nervous. Madame of Bones rolled her eyes and nodded inwardly. As a martial arts expert, she was the only one who knew how terrifying that strike was. Martial Dao experts already had the ability to seal space. At the sea reincarnation realm, even a martial Dao expert would be an ant in the hands of a martial Dao expert. Yu Qi sighed. What a pity, he is now targeted by King Xianyang. He is dead for sure. Many white bone lords and even Madame of Bones nodded inwardly. Being able to escape the first attack was already the limit. With the second attack, this black-clothed kid was dead for sure. At this moment, the hatred in Qin Feng's heart couldn't be washed away even with all the water in the 3 rivers. Qin Feng raised his eyes to look above his head. The dark clouds that shrouded his heart told him that the next attack might come very soon. He couldn't escape. Martial Dao experts could seal space and sever the void. Even if he had treasures like the ancient void talisman, he wouldn't be able to escape. Needless to say, the intense pain in Qin Feng's body reminded him that he was seriously injured. King Xianyang, you are forcing me to kill you. Qin Feng gritted his teeth and looked up. He made up his mind. Even if he had to walk right into a trap and harm others, he had to kill this King Xianyang. His eyes flashed with malevolence and resentment. Boom! With a flash, Qin Feng instantly flew toward Madame of Bones' white bone purgatory. His figure was as fast as lightning, and he instantly arrived above the white bone purgatory. Seeing Qin Feng's actions, not only were Xian Yang and Xian Wuji surprised, but even Madame of Bones had a strange expression. Yu Qi, Ling Ji, and the other white bone lords had strange expressions. "Madam, he seems to want to enter our white bone purgatory." Yu Qi looked at Madame of Bones and asked, "Madam, should we let him in?" Madame of Bones' expression was cold. She formed a hand seal in her palm, and a huge force surged in the white bone purgatory, causing the entire void to tremble. A trace of murderous aura circulated in her eyes. Seeing Qin Feng's talent, King Xianyang and Xian Wuji weren't the only ones who felt apprehensive and decided to eliminate him. Madame of Bones was the same. One had to know that she had personally detained Qin Feng earlier. There is one more update at night. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.